The idiot Lord marries 5 beautiful goddesses. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, Enrollment Letter. Zenith was not at peace due to the recent events. Alex had just entered Zenith and a storm had already broken out. And the person who was in the middle of the storm was trying his best to remain calm. He was called for the coronation ceremony, but instead of being crowned he was going to be thrown into the academy, and that means he can't leave the capital, and this matter had already brought him headaches. And it also delayed his meeting with Yvonne's parents. Now, he was embarrassed to face them. The way things played out is quite strange. I almost imagined you arriving with wounds or a missing arm. But thank goodness you came out of the lair safe and sound, Athena joked with Alex. Alex laughed bitterly at Athena's words. I don't know why I have a feeling it was going to end like this. Maybe the Emperor wanted to enroll you in the academy from the beginning, Catalina said. Why do you think that? Both Raya and Christina looked at her with a questioning expression. Perhaps you already know about the Crown Prince's law, which requires graduating from the academy. I thought Alex would be an exception, but I think I was wrong this time, Catherine muttered. Alex swept his gaze around at everyone around him and his gaze stopped at Catherine. Out of everyone here, only you have attended the academy. So tell me, what is it like? Catherine nodded and began to explain. The main class will be divided into groups depending on their choice and talent: magic class, night class, and literary class. Magic class is for those who want to become mages and their body has an aptitude for magic. Night class is for those who want to walk the martial path to become warriors, and literature class is for those who haven't awakened and choose to become scholars, and you are in literature classes filled with useless people and outcasts, Alex said with a smile. Catherine nodded proudly but stopped midway when she realized Alex's hidden meaning. PFF, the entire room burst into laughter as they stared at Catherine, who was making a fool of herself. Alex, Catherine glared at him angrily, clenching her fist and rebutting. It's not filled with useless people but rather a scholar class. Don't underestimate scholars. Scholars were also taught how to fight. There were also many awakened people in literature classes, and without scholars, civilization wouldn't have progressed to what it is today. There wouldn't be any difference between demons, beastmen and us. Catherine snorted. Since we're doing this, I have to think of some ways to make a profit, Alex said. Don't tell me you're going to kidnap some people, Christina asked with a surprised expression. Alex gritted his teeth at her expression and muttered, I'll try to find a way to groom the students and request them to work for us. I think you misspoke about kidnapping as you were asked, Catherine said with a mocking smile. I wish Alice was there. When would she enter the academy? Alex asked. Next year, Raya replied. At the same time, they heard a knock on the door. Christina stood up and went out to check on the situation and came back with an envelope and passed it to Alex. Alex squinted and took the envelope. Alex closed his eyes when he saw the bright handwriting that almost blinded his vision. What do we have here? Alex read the letter and his expression turned solemn. Ha. He took a deep breath, tossed it towards the table and massaged his forehead. What's in there? Everyone asked. Is the content too heavy even for you? Athena said. It's the admission letter. Everyone took a cold breath. And Raya, you have to enroll too. What? Raya shouted with a panicked expression. I have to enter the academy with my lord? At first, she was scared and wondered if she had heard something wrong, but when she thought about it more, her eyes sparkled with joy. Would that mean I get to accompany my lord? Oh my. How lucky I am. Alex and the others noticed Raya's thoughts and threw a bucket of cold water on her. You're going to enroll in the night class? Raya's expression turned ugly and she started complaining about it. What class are you assigned to? Catherine asked curiously. Magic, Alex replied indifferently. How did I know you had magic affinity? Catherine asked. Even Alex was suspicious of it. Except for the healing spell, he hadn't used any magic spells in front of others, and his enemies who might have seen him always ended up dead. And a healing spell is only possible with the blessing of the goddess, so it doesn't matter if one has affinity or not. Maybe they've tested your affinity before when you were a child? Athena muttered and looked towards Raya. Have they ever tested it? Alex asked curiously. I don't know. There were times when you were taken by people who received orders from the Emperor to go somewhere and I asked you if you remembered anything. You always answered incomprehensibly and said that you were taken to a study room or something, and after that, you don't remember anything, Ridai replied. Alex nodded and rubbed his chin, falling into deep thought. Alex has an affinity for magic, otherwise how could he use it? Surprisingly, he could use most of the elements. Fire, water, wind, rocks, lightning, plants, ice and light. Those were the basic attributes of magic spells. He didn't have any affinity with the light elements, but with the help of Goddess Rebecca and Hurt, who is the goddess of nature, he was able to develop an affinity with the light elements. Innate attributes are quite strong, but one can also develop them through external means. Unlike others, he spent a long time in the goddess sanctuary, where time flows slower, and had plenty of time to develop other magic attributes. Anyone who has a higher number of affinities has an aura that can be identified with a single glance. Perhaps someone that day was able to notice this in the throne room, or those people who secretly observed his battle against Amidin noticed something. Out of every 1,000 mages, only a couple could use more than 4 elements. And her affinity for the elements of lightning and fire is the strongest while wind is the lowest, but that doesn't mean she doesn't have any affinity for wind and can't use wind spells. Alex didn't know anything about another member of the royal family, but he heard from Alice that she had affinity for 3 nature elements currently, and Prince Sean had all except light and plant, who can be considered genius mages. Alex looked at the letter and spoke. And we're already in the 2nd year and we're already 6 months behind. I could already feel a headache coming on. She could pass the practical tests, but she didn't know if she could keep up with the written exams and papers piling up at Leonhardt. She felt like she was going through the biggest crisis of her life. Alex looked at the others with a bitter smile. We were able to reunite after so long, and that old bastard forced us to part ways again. Alex's heart grew heavy and torn. Although they can stay in Zenith, Leonhardt will be ignored at this rate. And either his or Catherine's presence was necessary to settle matters, otherwise their long absence might make the entire development in vain. Athena noticed his expression and said, "Don't worry, a family can be separated, but it can never be broken." Alex stood up, opened his arms and hugged each of them once and said, "I'm lucky to have wives like you, but it might be your bad luck to have me as a husband." Catherine unknowingly felt a little excited and snuggled into his chest. After meeting Alex, she always had the feeling of being protected and didn't need to keep her guard up. "Next time I come back I will draw a large magic circle whose activation will be able to transport me directly from my dormitories to Leonhardt so we can meet every day." Alex spoke with a smile and tried to spend some quality time with his wife. Christina simply enjoyed his warm embrace without saying a word, but she still felt a little sad about it. As Alex approached Athena, she smiled and spoke in a heavy voice. "Don't forget about us and don't you dare pick up girls. Raya, if you see any sluts coming over or if this guy dares to seduce you, just cut the thing off and cut the butt off." Alex screamed and shrank back. "What do you mean by cutting that thing off? Aren't you destroying your future happiness?" Except for the foolish Christina, everyone understood the underlying meaning and their faces turned red. "I'm talking about the girl. Raya, just cut that girl off, dirty-minded pervert." Athena stuck out her tongue and mocked Alex. Chapter 252, Inscription. After a brief meeting, it was decided that Catherine, Christina, and Athena would return to Leonhardt after staying in Zenith for a few days. Athena decided to move into the orphanage and take the children with her. What she didn't know was that Alex had pulled the rope from behind. As Alex watched the children and the group seemed to be made up of bronze and silver geese to him that could become slaves, that is, pillars to Leonhardt. If Athena knew this, she would kick Alex to death for having ulterior motives. She would kick him to death. Zenith Academy. When considering a future filled with all sorts of dangers, if a person has to stand out from the others, they have to possess some sort of skills in the department they are interested in or have a talent for a particular field. As the institute that stands above all, not only in the Kinley Empire but also in the entire continent, it is the dream of all those who aspire to reach the top. The cadets were not only humans, and all sorts of species were present here. Zenith Academy is one of the best academies where future generations are cultivated, and it is the oldest academy that has existed for thousands of years with a rich heritage. And there he was, standing before the gates of such a prestigious place. That was the next step towards his new life. It was huge and comparable to a mini-city like the one he had in his previous life. The tall buildings with shiny white surfaces and magnificent facilities with a large gate leading to the academy resemble a large castle in its glory. The imposing building seemed to touch the clouds like a skyscraper. Alex and Raya stood there lost in thought as they watched things. Alex's expression was rather gloomy and he was quite frustrated to enter the place, but witnessing the wonderful and glorious academy had lessened his bitterness a little. Before he set foot in it, Alex felt a slight uneasiness, due to the separation from his other wives. All of them have only just come together, and in a way they have to part ways again. He shook his head to suppress the feeling in his heart and stared at Raya, who smiled and took his hands. A flight of stairs leading to the gates was arranged in an orderly fashion, and at the top were guards waiting for them to climb up. 2 guards standing in front of the gates served as his escorts to show him the way. Alex stared at the guards patrolling the area. There were 8 guards and each of them was very competent. Alex was stopped by them, and after showing his newly created seal of the Leonhardt Kingdom as well as the enrollment letter, the guards gave their approval and allowed the 2 of them to enter. A guard made a hand signal and a surprising phenomenon occurred. A flash of dim light emanated from the bars, causing them to rise, following which a narrow passage appeared in the barrier, allowing them to enter the academy grounds. Security is pretty good, Alex nodded in satisfaction. You should head to the admissions department. Show them this special letter, otherwise, you might get expelled. Keep walking straight and turn right, a guard spoke. Alex could sense a hint of jealousy in his words. He seemed to be single and seeing Raya being affectionate with him might have infuriated him. Alex thanked him and began walking followed by Raya. Entering, they were greeted by a vast compound with several buildings spread across the area. As Alex walked, he felt rather strange and as he turned his head, he could feel countless gazes watching him. As for their intentions, Alex couldn't sense any malicious intent coming from them, so he ignored them. But still, receiving that kind of strange gaze could make anyone feel uneasy. The situation was pretty similar to all the neighbors peeking through their house in hopes of getting a good show. Sir, that's the admissions department, Raya pointed at the huge sign. It stood out quite a bit and was different from other buildings. It looked quite sturdy. Although the materials used in the construction looked simple, they all seemed to be so exquisite that they could withstand a hit. Alex could imagine hundreds of students lining up in front of it during admissions season, but it was empty now. Good afternoon, gentlemen, how may I help you? The middle-aged assistant asked with a sincere smile. Hello sir, me and her came to enroll. The assistant's expression stiffened and he looked at them with a surprised expression. Ahem. Ahem, coughing lightly, he spoke. I think you have the wrong idea. The academy admissions have already ended. If you want to study here, better luck next time, he said with a warm smile. Alex laughed a little at the sight of the man who had good intentions. Sir, I know. I didn't want to attend, but the Emperor forced me to come here. Alex spoke with a pitiful tone and took out the enrollment letter. The attendant took out the letter and studied it carefully. He took out a pair of glasses and tried to verify the letter along with all the documents. Under the glasses, the seal along the writing would shine, showing a certain light due to the Mana signature that could be easily verified. All of this is valid, he muttered with a confused expression. He was just a minor attendant, so he didn't know what had happened outside recently, nor was he informed about the special case. I'm going to ask the higher authorities for help, he muttered and walked away after asking Alex and Raya to wait for a while. The two chatted for a bit and after a few minutes, the attendant returned and asked them to follow him. They were led to an inner room where an elegantly dressed man stood. Alex felt that the man was a legendary ranked mage. King Alex, forgive me for my rudeness, but you will be called Alex here. Your status doesn't matter in this place, perfumery words. Everyone knew whether status mattered or not. Alex snorted inwardly. Sir, how can I address you? Alex asked. You can call me Marks. Because of the Emperor's order, you are going to enroll in the academy, but don't think that you are a special case. Many transfer students came in the middle or late years from other empires, but even if you enter the academy by the Emperor's order, we won't bend the rules and you'll have to pass the entrance exam like everyone else. Even transfer students had to pass it. Sir, if I can't pass the exam, will I be sent home? Alex said with bright eyes shining with joy. Marx's mouth dropped open for a moment as he saw Alex's expression. Is this child an idiot? Many cried and begged to enter the academy because of the strict entrance. Many noble children couldn't even get in and there's no back door here, and while many were dying to study there, this child wanted to get out. No, Alex interrupted. If you fail, you'll be put into a scholar class. Alex sighed with a dispirited expression. Take this nameplate and go through this door to enter the arena. Your magic affinity will be tested and afterward you'll undergo a battle test and then your attributes will be checked. Alex looked at Raya and asked her to follow him. Don't take her with you, she has to go to the other side. The martial arts department has to be tested there, Mark said, giving Raya a badge and pointing to the other side. Alex gave Raya a thumbs up and walked away from her. Chapter 253, Enrollment Test. Welcome everyone, a very loud and clear voice echoed throughout the venue. It filled the largely empty hallway where no one was present when Alex entered, and upon hearing the voice, he wondered if it was sarcasm and the man was trying to mess with him. The man on the stage felt Alex's piercing gaze, as if the latter was going to dig a hole in him. I didn't want to embarrass you, kid. I figured since I was doing it, I should do it properly. Alex simply shook his hand and muttered weakly, I don't know how many types of animals I'm going to find here. Hey, what did you say? Didn't I hear you? The man stared at Alex. Hey. I just said that I can't wait to meet the students in my class, Alex said. You seem like a free-spirited kid. From the way things are going, you might get beaten up in the second year. Most of them had already reached the rank of disciples, and some even reached the rank of masters, hoping to advance to the epic rank by the end of the year or next year, the man warned. Now, come and let's test your rank, the moderator spoke and pointed at the huge white crystal ball before him. You just need to touch it and pour your mana into it. The crystal ball will test the quality of your mana and discern your rank. When a person emits mana, the mana particles oscillate at a particular frequency, specific to the rank. The higher the rank, the higher the oscillation frequency, he explained professionally. Alex turned a deaf ear to him and was lost in other thoughts. He wondered what rank he should display. He had properly concealed his confident strength to reach the peak rank of disciple, and even though many were skeptical of his rank, he bombarded the palace gates. Concealment wouldn't work in the face of this crystal test, but that's not the case for him. Only those close to him knew his true rank, and he took it upon himself to conceal it as the occasion required. To avoid suspicion, he failed to ascend to epic rank in Leonhard and only succeeded after leaving him and securing a spot on his own so he could ascend. According to the test, he can somewhat control the frequency of mana due to his good control of mana. Alex stepped forward and placed his hands on the mana crystal. The white crystal began to glow, emitting a blinding flash. The crystal can measure mana up to the epic rank and beyond. The ball would explode. The rank would be indicated by color. White for the squire, yellow for the disciple, orange for the master, and red for the epic rank. The flash of light began to fade away and the crystal turned orange, greatly surprising the moderator. Not even in his dreams did he think that the boy without any guidance would already assume the rank of master. If it was an heir or a son of a noble family, then it would be fine, but he naturally knew Alex's identity. As he watched the scene, his expression changed a little as the orange color abruptly flickered and eventually returned to yellow. Alex sighed and looked at the moderator innocently, asking with a curious look, "Why did the color change?" "It's because you seem to be at the peak of the disciple rank and need a little push to enter the master rank. At first, your body vigorously emanated mana at the master rank, but it was soon unable to do so since you're not master rank." Alex made an expression of understanding and nodded. "And now, what about the next test?" The moderator looked at Alex and said, "Next, your affinity will be tested, and lastly, your dexterity, but the order has been changed and you must first demonstrate your battle skills." "What is the reason for this sudden change?" Alex asked curiously. "Ask the one in charge," the moderator muttered, and they both disappeared with a snap of his fingers. Alex appeared in a huge Colosseum stadium on a hard metal platform and heard a voice that had a tone of narcissism. "The one in charge of the second test is none other than the mighty me. The extraordinary professor, the professor of the year. Quinn Russ." Suddenly, a gust of wind gathered at the place, attracting Alex's attention. Alex's eyes widened as he saw the man who appeared between the winds. "Nice to see you, Alex," he greeted me. "Nice to meet you too," Alex muttered with a cautious expression because the one who appeared before him was a beast in a sense. He gave off the aura of a legendary rank, but as soon as Alex activated the eyes of truth, his eyeball opened. "Name, Quinn Russ. Rank, legendary, mid-mythic, class, mage. Talent, has a high aptitude for magic potential, superior mid-mythic rank." "Are you kidding me? Who the hell is he?" "Mythic rank and teacher." Although he looked young, this guy was not ordinary in any sense. "Alex, as I informed you, you are going to study the magic class, so without wasting any time, I must begin the second round of the test. Let me tell you the requirements. The purpose of this exam is to see the casting of magic, your casting speed, your efficiency, and as a student who is going to enroll, One must be capable enough to utilize mana to a certain extent as expected of you. You will step forward and cast your powerful spell if you attack me as much as you can. I will judge your skills according to the second year criteria as instructed, which is often difficult since no matter what, we have orders that you must enroll in the second year. Now, come at me with everything you got, Quinn shouted, trying to cheer up Alex, who seemed rather lazy. Alex thought about the spell and decided to start with a fire spell. Alex raised his hand and a small spark lit up and was about to form a fireball when Alex realized something and stopped the spell. Swish! Instead of fire, black smoke emerged and Alex laughed bitterly. Sorry, I wrote it wrong. Quinn felt a bit disappointed and asked him to really start. Alex sighed in relief. After going crazy, he had forgotten that he could cast spells silently and that some didn't even need to be chanted. He almost summoned a fireball without any chanting, which could have caused problems. Alex closed his eyes and his lips began to move rapidly, an indication that he had already started his spell. Quinn noticed that Alex had applied speed enhancement magic to increase the speed of his chanting. Mana began to surge around Alex and began to spin around him as he raised his palm. The air began to spin before him and a scorching heat began to radiate from his palm with a hiss. Bazooka tornado of flames, Alex shouted. A strong gust was unleashed and a column of flames emerged that twisted before Alex in the form of horizontal tornadoes whose pace increased and shot towards Quinn. Quinn felt a blast of hot air hit him and his clothes fluttered, but he stood fearlessly in the face of the rising tempests that descended upon him, trying to engulf him. Chapter 254, Battle Between Magicians. While Alex was undergoing a series of tests, inside a room stood a group of people watching the scene displayed on the screen projected by a crystal. Each of them observed Alex. From his demeanor to his facial expression when he took the test. When Alex finished the rank test, many praises began to rain down on him. He sure had royal blood in his veins, although compared to others he is still a bit behind and not up to par with others, but if we think about all the things he has been through in his life, it is quite remarkable for him, said Neon, a teacher. Although Alex was a bit looked down upon compared to other royal descendants, it was not entirely untrue. Alice, who is the youngest, had already reached the rank of disciple, and by the time she entered, she could have already reached the rank of master if she tried hard to advance. While everyone was murmuring, in the driver's seat an old man was staring at the crystal with an inexplicable look. His long beard fell down like a waterfall and he looked quite old, as if he would drop dead at any moment, but his eyes seemed to be full of vitality. His gaze was sharp and penetrating, seeming to be searching for something on the screen. His eyes didn't leave Alex and there was a bit of surprise in his eyes as he watched him, as if the boy was a mysterious being. He stroked his long beard and raised his eyebrows as the next stage began. Everyone listened to Quinn's speech and shook their heads in a bit of worry. Principal Douglas, was it okay to let him go and take over the test? Instead of judging by the Academy's standards, you're bound to increase the difficulty and make things harder for Alex. He just went there to have fun, one of the teachers said. I hope he doesn't forget what he's doing and hurt Alex, Douglas sighed and said. He said he wanted to be a judge or else he'd turn everything upside down. I just hope he doesn't push the kid around all over the place. Everyone nodded their heads upon hearing his words. Quinn Rusk was no ordinary mage. He was already close to the level of an archmage and had already made a name for himself on the continental list. On the list of top mage, he was ranked 18th, but no one knows his actual prowess. The rankings except for the top 10 change a lot and one challenges another and defeats them to take away their rank. Quinn was ranked 40th when he got into a battle with Gordon, who was ranked 18th, and accidentally, but surprisingly, defeated him with ease. They let out a surprised expression when they saw that Alex was misspelled and many clicked their tongues in disappointment, but Alex's move did not go unnoticed by Douglas' eyes. He could sense the change and wondered if he had misspelled spelt or there was something else going on. They're really starting, a teacher whispered and everyone's attention focused on the screen as Alex initiated the spell. Whoosh! A powerful vortex of flames was terrifyingly launched towards Quinn, but he stood his ground without taking a step back. His expression was quite relaxed to the point that he started yawning deeply despite the danger getting closer. As the vortexes of flames closed in proximity, they completely engulfed him, trying to devour him. A snapping sound was heard, and the massive cluster of twisted flames instantly dispersed and was nullified in a moment. Hot flames scattered everywhere, sending out hot winds enough to burn skin. The hot flames quickly dissipated as Alex watched in surprise as the man easily dispelled his spell. This guy is actually no ordinary guy. The spell was basic level, but he had complete mastery over it and could even nullify an intermediate spell. The man's ability to dispel it with a simple move meant that his understanding and mastery were comparable to him at the current stage. Next move, please. Alex's lips twitched as he saw the man's expression as if he was ordering the next dish to be served at the restaurant. Quinn simply shrugged as he watched Alex glare at him. You're pretty relaxed despite me casting spells at you. Can you at least hide that rude look on your face? It's pretty irritating, Alex muttered. What can I do? I haven't had any fun in a long time. Now does your next spell begin? If you want to have fun you should find a girl instead of fighting, otherwise it makes you look like a masochist, Alex said with a smirk. Alex threw a fireball into the air and it suddenly split into hundreds of balls at once and they all surrounded Quinn. The fireball began to spin and took on a spindle shape and swirled around at high speed on the pointed edge in front. From afar it looked as if a bullet had materialized and the projectile was made of fire. Alex raised his hand and aimed it at Quinn. Fire bullet, Alex chanted and clenched his fist. Swish. 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 Hundreds of bullets headed towards him as if a machine gun was shooting at him. The bullets shot through the air and hit Quinn, who had an amused smile on her face. Quinn chanted a spell and the air around her swelled and blew, becoming much denser. The wind swirled and began to gather around her. Alex's eyeball widened as she noticed a strange phenomenon. A barrier made of high-density wind appeared, and as the bullet passed through the transparent barrier, small ripples began to appear all over the barrier imposed by Quinn. As the bullets went deeper into it, they left a trail and suddenly disappeared after passing inside, but none of them were able to hit Quinn. Alex stared at the wide smile on Quinn's face. It could have easily destroyed her spell, but for an unknown reason, she tried to display a creative spell. Instead of forming the general impenetrable shield used by a mage, it forms a dense layer of air barrier. The principle was quite similar to the dense atmosphere destroying a meteor. As the meteors entered the atmosphere, the dense air rubbed against them, creating friction, and many of them burned up, leaving nothing behind before reaching the earth. Soon all the bullets failed to hit Quinn as Alex began to cast the next set of spells. Chapter 255, Battle Between Wizards 2. Alex chanted another spell and suddenly, the ground Quinn was standing on sank, forming a small hole. Quinn was caught off guard and his balance was broken as he fell, and at that moment the barrier created by him dispersed as Alex chanted another spell and swung his arms like a sword. Fire sword, a long sword made of condensed flames, shot towards Quinn. Although the barrier dispersed, he manipulated the wind to regain his balance and his body shot up and his figure floated in the air. He raised his finger pointing at Alex and the wind began to condense. Swish! An invisible mass of pressure shot towards Alex, and even before he could react, it passed through his scratching cheek, shocking him greatly. Alex stood rooted to the ground, unable to react. He felt as if an invisible, sharp blade pierced through him as fast as lightning. A small amount of blood dripped out as a few strands of hair fell to the ground. Kid, I didn't come here to play or waste time. I heard some interesting things about you, so I thought I would have a little fun with you. I can see a lazy and indifferent look in your eyes, and just like me, you are holding back, Quinn muttered with a solemn expression. Looking at your height and physicality, you seem to be a battle mage and well-versed in hand-to-hand combat. So, just throw everything you've got at me. If you can please me, please, I will owe you a favor, and you may not know it, but my favor carries great weight to friends and great threat to enemies. Quinn smiled. Alex raised his chin looking at Quinn and his entire body trembled. It was not from fear or oppression but from excitement. His blood boiled, and the fighting spirit within him was greatly awakened, and he clenched his fist tightly. There were two things, hardware and software. Martial arts depend on hardware, which is physical fitness, while magic aptitude depends on software, chanting, and thinking, which is similar to mathematical calculation. Not many may know, but Alex finds magic much more friendly than martial arts. Under the guidance of Goddess Rebecca and the Goddess of Wisdom, Alex progressed by leaps and bounds. Some of his theories surprised even the goddess. Alex finds magic interesting, and in a way, scientific knowledge can help understand the underlying principle. His way of looking at magic scientifically and comparing both science and magic made it easier to understand things. But after returning from Sanctum, he worked hard on the hardware and neglected the software aspect. Even though he had vast knowledge, he was unable to utilize it properly because his body was holding it back and he needed to accumulate that knowledge, otherwise his brain circuit would be damaged due to overflow. It could be said that most magical knowledge is a seal waiting to be explored when the need arises. If his previous processing speed and sanctum can be described as a supercomputer, then his current self was a simple high-speed processing PC, and the difference between processing speed was quite large. So, Alex hoped to slowly surpass magic after strengthening his body, but after meeting Quinn, his passion for magic was rekindled again. "Let's do it," Alex shouted and put together several spells on himself in a quick period. A burst of mana burst out from his body with a gust of wind. Boom! In an instant, Alex shattered the ground beneath his feet, breaking into pieces as he charged towards Quinn. Silence. Alex's momentum was quite fast as he sped towards Quinn, who let out a laugh. AWWW. Alex's arms collided with Quinn, who was in the air, and casually blocked it. The air around them tore apart. Swish. Alex raised his fist and aimed for her head. Bomb. Quinn stared at the oncoming attack like it was a child's game and raised her arms to block it. Boom. 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 Alex threw a series of punches but to no avail and couldn't move the man an inch. She thought the man might be weaker in hand-to-hand combat, but that wasn't the case. They both landed after exchanging a few blows, which Quinn defended with one hand quite easily. Quinn smirked in amusement as she watched Alex struggle. Alex summoned many fireballs and threw them at Quinn in quick succession. "Old tricks," Quinn muttered and waved her hand. But unlike before, the ball of flames burst into smoke before reaching him and covering his vision completely, cutting off his sight for a moment. A beam of flames fell to the ground, and instead of dying out, it ignited and the flames spread like waves surrounding Quinn, trapping him in a closed perimeter. Quinn waved her hand and a strong hurricane blew, extinguishing the fire, but Alex took advantage and cast the spell, turning the ground into liquid mud. Quinn's eyes narrowed as her feet sank into the ground quickly, but she didn't stop maintaining the same indifferent look. She slid her body to get up from the ground, but to her surprise, the ground quickly dried around her feet and her lower body was trapped in the ground. Alex waves his hand and disrupts the structure of the liquid mud and solidifies it, trapping him on the ground and cutting off his movement. Quinn twisted his body to get out, but at that moment, a whip of a plant rose from the ground and lunged towards him. The thick vine swirled and bent into a whip-like shape to strike him. Fuuu. The whip of the vine caught fire before reaching him and burning the dried vine, after which several vines shot towards him, covering him from head to toe, but this way he was far from done. Alex stomped the ground hard, forming a large pit under his feet. The ground rumbled like the waves of the sea, and several blocks rose and lifted from the ground. They began to vibrate weakly, and soon several pieces of an altered block of earth, molded into rocks, surrounded Quinn. Alex took a breath of cold air, and his eyes flashed with a sinister smile, wondering how Quinn would get out. Swish. 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 With a casual movement from Alex, several rocks shot towards him, wanting to pulverize the main thing and turn it into meat paste. Ha 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 ha. A loud laugh echoed throughout the place, and all the vines caught fire as the ground cracked, and Quinn began to take a step forward. A wall of earth appeared before him, forming a shield that crashed against the rocks and boulders, but none of them were able to break the walls. Bam! 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 A loud crack was heard and the rocks shattered after crashing into the wall. Alex's eyes stopped on the wall, and he noticed that the man had applied intermediate enchantments to it to make it stronger and more resistant. Hey, isn't that cheating? We were fighting with basic magic and you used intermediate magic, so in this case, shouldn't I have already declared myself the winner? Alex complained as he glared at the men, who stared back at him with amused expressions. Chapter 256, Battle Between Wizards 3. Kid, don't twist logic. When did I say we'll be fighting with basic magic? Many of your groups have already mastered intermediate magic, Quinn shouted as he flew up. Do you think I'm naive enough to be fooled by your words? The high wall receded and merged with the ground. Since you've shown me a good show, then I should also show my sincerity. Take this, brat, Quinn said with a smile and pointed at him with her finger. A small piece of rock appeared and began to dance on her fingers. Lightning began to flicker around it, and she covered it in a cocoon, and without wasting any time, she launched it towards Alex. Alex's eyes widened as she felt a sense of crisis from the attack. Quinn had woven together basic spells, but the speed at which she was casting it was too fast. With the speed, she could even blow up a tank and punch a hole in the warship compared to her previous world. Damn it! Are you trying to kill me? Alex shouted and waved his hand. Mana rushed at him from all directions. Alex's mana heart started pumping out mana faster, and Alex didn't hold back when it came to casting the barrier, as it was a matter of life or death. A strong golden barrier appeared enveloping him, and Alex applied buffs on it. The golden glow started to grow larger and became stronger and thicker, forming an impenetrable layer. A battle mage uses buffs to strengthen their body to fight, unlike warriors who had strong bodies, but Alex decided to use his physical strength and aura in the worst case scenario because he might die. Alex was already circulating all of his mana and was ready to channel his aura to cover himself in the worst case scenario. Brilliant. The small piece of rock he shot pierced through the air as it launched itself towards Alex. It left a small fissure on the ground due to the high speed, creating a small sonic boom, one after another behind. Leaving behind a bluish trail, the mini rock hit the barrier with great impact and exploded. Alex's barrier couldn't hold up, and the explosion sent him flying into the air like a ragdoll as he slid off the ground after crashing into it. Although the barrier was destroyed, it neutralized the attack, and Alex was thrown mainly by the momentum of the collision. If he had used his aura to protect himself, the explosion couldn't have moved him an inch, but since the main danger was eliminated, he didn't use it and used his body to take the hit. Alex coughed a few times until his mouth was filled with blood and stared at Quinn. "I was right, you used the superior intermediate spell," Quinn rejoiced. "That doesn't mean you can kill me. If I didn't know intermediate spells, shouldn't I have a big hole in my chest due to your carelessness?" Alex said in an angry voice. "I was sure you could hold your own, and it seems like you still held back a bit, didn't you, Alex?" Quinn smiled. This man sure had a terrifying intuition. Alex cursed, and a sudden thought struck his mind. Did he already know that I'm hiding my strength and is trying to force my epic rank strength out of him? Beads of sweat covered his forehead as he thought about it. He wasn't sure, but the possibility scared him. If one day that guy turned out to be his enemy, he would surely disappear. Because weirdos like this come in twos. He already had that crazy Albert at his command, and now there was another crazy guy. At least this one was cultured and civilized compared to Albert. Still, that didn't mean he could do whatever he wanted. "Since you want it so badly, I'll gladly accept it and try to beat you at your own game," Alex whined and stood up. Whoosh! Alex's entire body glowed and the air around him vibrated, emitting a defeating roar comparable to the phenomenon of an ongoing natural disaster. Powerful ripples surged around him and his figure began to slowly float. Alex raised his hand and encompassed a mass of wind surrounding him, and like Quinn, his figure rose into the sky. Instead of using a flight spell, Alex used air to lift himself up and slide his body. Alex stared at Quinn, and soon his body was surrounded by lightning that flickered around him, dancing in his palms. The scene looked like a beautiful purple snake writhing around Alex, trying to please him. Her eyes turned blue, emitting a flash of lightning, and her hair stood up defying gravity, and her entire body was covered in lightning. Applying lightning to a body can increase speed by several times and can be used as both an offensive and defensive means, but it can also greatly damage the body as the lightning burns the body part if it passes inward. Only those whose bodies have resistance to lightning damage or people who temper their bodies to deal with lightning could use it this way. It could also increase the brain's processing speed as the lightning passes through the neurons. Although Alex's body didn't have any resistance to lightning, he had used the blessing and healing spell we were working on in the background to deal with the damage, repairing the burns within his body and preventing him from being fried to a crisp. Alex, stop, you don't need to try so hard," Quinn almost shouted in panic. Even those watching with high stakes felt their scales go numb. This kid is a maniac. At this rate he might die. I knew something like this was going to happen. Quinn is already a freak, and now Alex is also a maniac like him. The rumors were all true. This kid doesn't care about anything. He even tried his best to beat Quinn, even if this was just a test. "Headmaster, please do something. If anything happens to this kid, the Emperor will skin us alive." All the teachers screamed in horror and looked at the headmaster to do something. "Just sit back and watch the match," Douglas muttered in a calm tone. "But, Headmaster," the other tried to refute. "Don't worry. There's no damage to his body. If something was going to happen, it might have already happened. Shouldn't he be burned to ashes under normal circumstances? But he still looks fine." Douglas' words brought them some relief, and they too understood the situation and looked at Alex with a curious look. They could see the burns on his body repairing themselves as soon as they appeared. "I heard that he has received the blessing of the goddess Rebecca and will soon be officially named a holy son. He may have survived thanks to the blessing," a professor gave a plausible explanation. In the vast place, As if the storm was about to arrive, strong winds were rising from all around. Alex stow, lightning crackled and continued its path towards him even before he could finish his sentence. Boom. Alex manipulated the winds and threw a wind scythe at him, causing the high-speed wind to spiral through the air to cut through the barrier Quinn had created as lightning struck down at him. Quinn was momentarily shocked as he watched Alex break through his barrier. Zap. 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 Aum. Alex uses the wind to surround Quinn and send him crashing into the devastated ground below them. More rocks scattered as Quinn's body crashed into the ground. Alex surrounded himself with flames, rocks, and lightning and threw them all towards Quinn. Boom. 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 The small crackling explosions wreaked havoc one after another. The firepower was enough to roast and burn a momentous amount until there was nothing left but ashes that could also be blown away by the wind, leaving nothing behind. But unfortunately, Alex's hope was shattered, and as the layer of dust cleared, beneath the large crater, a man still stood without a single scratch on his body. This was pretty good. Not bad. Alex, you have already passed and exceeded my expectations, Quinn said, brushing the dust off her coat. Although Alex was happy to hear her words, her mood soured as she was unable to close the huge gap between them. But it's far from over, Quinn murmured softly. If you can withstand this blow, then you can consider yourself the winner. Water arrows, Quinn shouted, pointing to the sky. Suddenly it started to rain and dark clouds appeared above them. The rain that started to fall suddenly transformed into sharp water arrows and headed towards Alex. The arrows were thousands in number and could cause panic to anyone who faced them. Damn it. What kind of enmity does he have? He clearly said that I'm qualified, but he still doesn't stop. Does he want to hurt me? It's just a light drizzle. It's not enough. Quinn flicked his finger, and a dozen wind blades shot out from it. He raised his hand and waved it, following which 4 tornadoes appeared, spinning frantically and growing stronger. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257, Battle Between Wizards 4. If you can withstand this blow and survive my attack, I'll consider you to have passed the test with flying colors. You don't have to be afraid of death. I've controlled my strength. If you can't handle it, I'll save you from dying, Quinn said and began to wave her hand as if she was conducting an orchestra. The tornadoes began to spin, their rhythm beginning to ravage everything in their path. She raised her hand and waved it in a back and forth motion, and the 4 tornadoes began to spin around Alex, coming at him from all sides and closing off his escape route. Blue wind blades spun frantically on the outer edges of the tornadoes, cutting into the hard stone of the ground. The tornadoes grew increasingly fierce and soon caused total chaos and began to throw wind blades everywhere. The entire Colosseum began to crumble, large cracks appearing as the wind blades collided with it. It was extremely destructive, and on a battlefield where the opponent couldn't move anymore, this kind of engulfing magic had an advantage. Each spell was of a basic level, but the combined strength already surpassed that of the intermediate level. Seeing Alex's movement, Quinn spoke in a mocking voice, "This isn't over, little one." A water bubble appeared outside of Quinn that completely covered him and allowed him to slowly rise into the air. Quinn began to chant another spell rapidly, and a blue light coagulated at the tip of his fingers. He pointed at Alex and shouted, "Swirl tsunami, AUMM." A loud explosion occurred, as if the sky had been split in two. Tsunami waves tens of meters high appeared and crashed into the 4 tornadoes and Alex. Quinn smiled, raised both arms, and quietly commanded, "Rise." The madly spinning tornadoes elongated upward as they crashed into the tsunami. The wild wind collided with the breaking waves and prevented them from crashing. Can you feel the horror of the storm? That fear, the feeling of the unknown that one faces when in the middle of the storm. Quinn smiled and pointed at Alex with her finger. Another 5th tornado rose from the ground. That's your current situation, Alex. I've already created a canvas and a portrait of your current scenarios. Now, show me how you will approach and fill your canvas. The 5 howling tornadoes tore cracks into the ground as wind blades crashed into it, kicking up dust, debris, and stones. It rose up and crashed straight into a tsunami. A small whirlpool appeared directly below Alex, spinning vigorously like a black hole, and with a strong suction pressure, it tried to draw Alex's body towards it. If Alex was on the ground instead of floating, He might have already succumbed to death. Silence. Did you finish your spell? Quinn, who was enjoying the match, suddenly heard a loud, lazy voice. He stared into the gaps of the tornadoes and saw Alex yawning heavily, which puzzled him. Alex looked around. He was surrounded by a spell trap. From above came a shower of arrows, while beside him 5 tornadoes threw out blades of wind, while on the ground huge tsunami waves surged towards him from all sides, trying to devour him. While on the ground, the whirlpool dragged him away. I was scared for nothing, Alex muttered. The current situation wasn't that bad. If Quinn had used any other elemental spell, Alex might have found it difficult, but after having learned so much, this situation couldn't even involve him. Alex raised a hand, and with a sinister smile that surprised even Quinn, he snapped his finger. He had been preparing the spell ever since Quinn started the rain, and was overcharging it to the absolute limit. Overcharging is the phenomenon of charging the spell with mana before casting it and enhancing its effect, pushing the limit to get the best results from the current spell. Alex decided to make an upper intermediate spell and shut everything down, which was enough to scratch this guy's ego. Alex thought about using the advanced meteor spell, but the effect might be too much. Absolute glacial field, Alex's loud voice echoed. Cold air began to pour out of his body and his voice grew colder. A strong icy aura erupted from Alex and spread like waves everywhere. The entire place sank into freezing cold, as if it was the onslaught of winter that froze everything. A strong blizzard blew from all around, and the cold aura made everything freeze in an instant. The water arrows made of rain that we were launching towards Alex suddenly froze into icy arrows and stopped dead in their tracks and shattered into pieces of snow. The fierce attack of the tempest suddenly stopped, and a loud crackling voice began to echo from all around. The roaring tsunami that was spreading around them stopped, and tornadoes began to freeze from below and spread upwards until everything froze. Huge sheets of ice covered the ground, and 5 ice statues of tornadoes stood there, shining as they reflected the sunlight. The entire place was frozen, only him and Quinn. I'm impressed. You're more than qualified, Quinn said, praising Alex. The last spell was just too good. He did well, much to his surprise. Using ice to counter his water spells was pretty clever. It's good that I qualified, but I'm bummed to see that you were able to get away without a single scratch, Alex sighed. Not true, Alex. When you spilled it all and cast spells on me non-stop, you caught me off guard and I got a scratch here, Quinn said with a smile and raised her arms. Alex saw a small tear in his clothes, and it was so minuscule that it made no difference. Alex gritted her teeth and said, I'm talking about you, not your clothes. Quinn laughed, seeing Alex's frustrated expression, and walked over to him and patted him the next time. You can try again next time. I'm not running away anywhere. Alex sighed and resigned herself to her fate. Chapter 258, Academic Class. After finishing the test, Alex returned to the admissions department and found Riya already finishing her test. Riya had used her concealment technique and had displayed peak master rank strength, which did not surprise many, as many had guessed that she was strong, as she was regarded as his guardian and caretaker. Alex was worried about the judge, who might be hacked by Riya. Luckily, Riya did not overdo it. Alex and Riya were finally admitted peacefully, and all the ongoing procedures ended, and now Alex just has to start class. He was not forced to enter the next day, as he and Riya were shown their dormitories and asked to get a general idea of the academy. Alice and their wives visited Alex one last time before they left, and he was very happy to see them. Alex then found himself before the forces that had accompanied him on his trip to Zenith. All of their eyes reddened upon learning of Alex's stay in Zenith. Although Alex acted like a rascal, it also added a bit of fun to his boring life. When he was serious, his gaze was as cold as polar ice that could freeze anyone, and their ruthless and strict training had made them what they were today. Don't relax in my absence. If I don't see any progress when I visit you during my vacation, I will take matters into my own hands, Alex threatened. Alex was quite satisfied with their progress. Harry was also going to return to Brighton with all the disputes over. Leon Hurt could forge a strong relationship with Bright, and their mutual help could make them rise and prosper together. As for Albert, Alex was really hard-pressed thinking about him. Albert was also a student at Zenith Academy. At this academy, the 3 years between the ages of 18 and 20 was a period of apprenticeship, while the remaining year was a year of voluntary service in the military, where they could put their knowledge and skills to use. The wizard warriors and martial artists would be in charge of the front line, while the scholars would be in charge of administrative jobs, or the scholar can also submit a thesis or work under a professor as an assistant to graduate. But Albert didn't want to be posted to remote areas with nothing to do, so he dropped out of the academy in search of strong warriors to fight and improve with. Now, Albert was forced to stay in Leonhard and take up a command job, and had a lot more idiots accompanying him in training. Alex gave some guidance to his men and provided them with some scrolls and techniques brought from the market. Max, Antoine, and Ben sobbed until their eyes turned red. "Uncle Mordek, please take care of my wives. I've passed on some techniques and tricks to Catherine. You'll receive them when you get to Leonhard. Don't stop recruiting and training soldiers. They are our pillars," Alex said. "Your Majesty, I will take proper care of Leonhard in your absence," Mordek said seriously. Alex nodded, and after spending a pleasant moment, he said goodbye to his wives. Alex had brought a lot of goods from the capital that would be of great use to his people. He had managed to form a network and connection here. His kingdom was not isolated like before, and he was finally able to come into contact with others. Alex rubbed his nose as his people, who he considered his family, left, and when he looked back at him, he became sharper. He was sure that his life at the academy was not going to be easy. He researched about the academy, as one of the most common novelistic scripts was that the academy was attacked by enemies, and Alex wondered if this was going to happen in his presence. And surprisingly, it was not something new, as 4 or 5 years ago it was attacked. Catherine was studying during that period and spoke about the crisis, and luckily it was quickly resolved with only a handful of casualties. There have been more cases like this throughout history, and it's not that the academy's security was bad, but that there have been a lot of moles and bad apples in it. Let's see what it has in store for me. Alex smiled and walked into the academy with heavy steps. The second-year classes were about to start. Alex and Riya walked side by side, following Professor Neon leading them to class. Alex felt his heart beating fast. "I can't believe I'm feeling this when I'm heading to my class. It makes me feel alive." It would be a lie to say he wasn't excited about his class. Up until now, he didn't have a single friend. It didn't matter if someone was older or younger than him, everyone had to show him respect. Even Harry had taken him as a benefactor and called him king. It felt good, but sometimes an unknown loneliness would creep up on him because of that. "Maybe I can make some reliable friends," Alex muttered, turning his head towards Riya, and his mood immediately worsening. There was no special treatment here, and Riya couldn't cover her face with a veil. Wondering about all those venomous gazes staring at her, her heart bleeds. Bam! The classroom door opened and all the murmuring stopped. The sudden sound made everyone return to the beginning of the class, but when they saw their teacher, they were shocked to see 2 figures standing beside him. Out of the corner of their surprised eyes, they watched the figure entering class. The boy had a casual and carefree air about him, and his attire was quite radical. He followed the teacher with a carefree step towards the center. Standing beside him was a devilish and mesmerizing beauty who attracted the utmost attention of everyone in the class. Some even gulped breathlessly at the sight of her angelic face, always shining with a hint of natural seduction. Riya simply tiptoed shyly, feeling everyone's gaze. Professor Neon also stood at the podium, folded his hands behind his back, and spoke. There were around 50 students arranged in the auditorium classroom. The classroom was quite large and spacious, and his voice seemed to be naturally amplified by the structure of the walls. "Starting today, we have 2 new students joining your academic project," Neon said and looked at Alex. "Please welcome these 2 with a warm applause. Go and introduce yourself." Alex nodded and walked forward under everyone's curious gaze, making him feel like a lab rat. "Hello everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm Alex von Leonhardt, and I would like to be under your care from now on," Alex said. His voice was strong and full of confidence, with a hint of dominance. Alex took a step back, and Riya, with a meek expression, took small steps forward. Only a handful of people have seen her face, but now, such exposure naturally made her feel a little uncomfortable. "Hello, I'm Riya von Leonhardt. Nice to meet you all. I'll be under your care from now on." As soon as Riya's words fell, the entire atmosphere fell silent, and all gazes fell on Alex and glared at him as if they wanted to burn a hole into him. Alex ignored those gazes and nodded in satisfaction while giving a thumbs up. "Good, this will keep the pesky flies away." Chapter 259, Understanding Mana. The first day wasn't as bad as Alex imagined. Except for a few people who were staring at him like he was a scoundrel, nothing much happened, as many found out about his true identity soon after, and after, as word and gossip traveled rather faster, many started looking at him curiously. Some brave boys even believed that they had a chance to win Riaya over, as she was forced to marry him and might soon encounter all sorts of trouble with him in the future. To them, Alex was already sharpening his butcher knife. His hands were already itching for a fight. How can academic life be boring in his presence? He was already looking forward to the fun times. He avoided fights, but if they provoked him, he wouldn't let them get away unscathed. Meanwhile, Riaya was already burning incense for those lustful ones. She also noticed that several eyes were staring at her lord, but they didn't approach him hastily and might be waiting to see his performance and see if he was worthy or not. Just like her lord, she had already started to keep an eye on those girls who might fall under her dagger. Alex had thought that Riaya and he would be in a separate class, but he learned that one class comprised of the 3 groups of mage, martial arts, and scholars, and the other classes were to be chosen as electives. History, literature, social sciences, etiquette, sewing, geography, and theology were some of the electives, and they would move on to other classes when their turn for their course came. There were 5 electives to be selected, and the main course was divided into general and honors. The general exam could be taken by anyone who wanted to try another field, while the honors exam could only be taken by students enrolled in the particular department. For example, Alex can take general martial arts classes, but he can't get the distinction. Similarly, Riaya can take general magic classes, but he can't get the distinction. Alex looked forward to Quinn's classes, but was saddened to learn that she had only taken classes in her 3rd year. Her classes are packed from Monday to Friday with 3 1.5-hour classes each day. Saturday was the magician and martial arts physical class, where they would practice their spells against each other and issue challenges to each other. In a month, there would be a physical class where both classes would trade blows against each other. It starts with a friendly smile but ends with all sorts of curses poured on another person. Magic theory and the application of mana were common to everyone, both of which were learned by their homeroom teacher, Neon. Since Alex was new, he along with Riaya were forced to join the first-year supplementary classes held for those who failed to advance in the final first semester of the first year, which was quite humiliating for him. Just as people regard air as the basis of life, mana is regarded as the basis of strength. Without mana, the world would not be what it is today. There can be people who cannot sense or use mana and others who'd use it, and substantial differences can be found. It is not true that only an awakened person can sense mana. Many people who are not awakened can also sense it. The difference between the two is the ability to draw, channel, store, and manipulate mana. Mana accelerates the growth of our body, its healing and regenerative power, and even a low-level awakened person can live a longer and healthier life than a non-awakened person. Currently, Professor Kale taught them about mana from the basics. Alex knew all of that, but listening to the teacher caught his attention. His speech was pretty good. Not too slow, not too fast, and best of all, it wasn't boring in any way. Now let's move on to the next thing, Khalid said and raised his glasses. Now, the most basic question? What is mana? Where does it come from? He spoke and started explaining without asking anyone. It's not like he was ignoring everyone, rather everyone in this class was a failure except for Alex and Riaya, and a few others who were also transfer students like him. Mana is present in the world as naturally as air. Even with elemental magic we can manipulate air, but has anyone ever tried to create air out of nothing? There's a famous saying, mana is neither created nor destroyed, it can only be transformed from one form to another. Some great scholars and philosophers consider mana to be made up of tiny little particles that can't be seen with the naked eye, but are theoretically present. Whether this is true or not, only future research will tell us. Just like mana, all of nature's magic didn't spring forth from nothing. He paused and began to explain. His questions sparked debate among everyone. Many of them haven't even thought about it. All elemental magic was used by manipulating other elements. In water magic, air molecules were broken apart and reacted chemically to form water. People unconsciously applied science through magic with the help of their spells. Dust particles and molecules came together to form rock, while light, flame, and lightning were natural forms of energy that can be converted into each other and altered into different things by using mana, as they were the natural form of energy. If one was in a vacuum, they couldn't use most elemental magic. Alex, who had a brief knowledge of science, was able to correlate it with magic and came to know all these plausible theories. Mana was a special kind of energy and is the purest form of energy. Neon also explained something quite similar to him, but it was somewhat out of his reach since this world still didn't know about the presence of molecules, elements, electrons, and protons. Alex didn't dare to imagine what kind of scenarios would happen if all these things existed in a magic world. Alex could already cast an atomic fusion spell, and if everyone knew a spell like this, wouldn't the entire world disappear from existence? Now, all of you, let's move on to the mage level. There are 10 levels of magic spells that divide the mage categorically. Levels 1 to 3 are known as basic spells, levels 4 to 6 are known as intermediate spells, and levels 7 to 9 advanced and above are level 10, which are known as legendary spells. The ranking of mages is a bit different from the normal warrior realms. Just because a mage reaches the mythic realm doesn't mean that he can cast advanced magic and is considered a level 7 mage. It simply means that he could cast the spell he knew more efficiently and the results would be much better. Magic depends on aptitude and the amount of knowledge one possesses. Shallow knowledge and a lack of proper understanding hold many of you back. The reason why nobles rise while commoners lag behind is that nobles learn from a young age, while commoners have to work hard to have the chance to learn. On the other hand, some have already begun their career. Archmage Sophia and Archmage Michael were the outstanding mages who rose up the continental list from the commoner level and spread their fame far and wide. Most of the second-tier deputies here are commoners or fallen nobles. Even if you are behind, don't worry. Your hard work will always be rewarded. So give it your all. Professor Kale spoke in a kind tone, trying to encourage everyone. Chapter 260, Pesky Fly. As Alex had thought, he found it difficult to interact with others. When students first entered, there was a brief introduction and they formed groups after getting to know each other. His class consists of fallen nobles, commoners, princes and nobles from kingdoms, and children of nobles from the capital. Alex felt like he was in a trial period where every move was watched with a hostile gaze directed at him. But sadly, Alex can't blame them because befriending him can either turn out good or bad and there's no middle ground. If one day it turns out that the prince and the emperor don't favor him and he has no power to even defend himself, then everyone who had a connection with him would suffer. So, everyone seemed to be evaluating him from behind the scenes. Being an imperial prince was very difficult. Although he was disinherited, he had to go through all those troublesome things. Alex could already glimpse a great event that might be coming, and many would decide after seeing his performance. Alex just hoped that his pesky brothers wouldn't interfere in his life and pull the strings from behind, but he knew that there must be at least one among the 4 princes who might be eager to provoke him. And who that unfortunate one will be, only time will tell. The boys' dorm seemed to always be bustling with life. Some put all their efforts into improving themselves, while others could be seen lazing around and enjoying the academic life as if it were a vacation spot. Spending some free time, as usual, Alex tried to read the books to familiarize himself with the subjects. He refreshed his outdated knowledge and set about studying the new magical theories. The world was moving forward and new ideas were emerging every day. Alex was recently studying the theory proposed by a magic scholar on how to make a mana core, which greatly piqued his interest. As he has previously said, while humans have vessels, beasts and monsters have magic cores. This person put forward a theory. Some humans were born with clogged blood vessels, through which mana could not be channeled, or some people's blood vessels are cut off, leaving them crippled. To them, the scholar was trying to find a way to form a magic core in humans. This was a proposal that had been put forward and needed to be tested and discussed until it could be proven. Alex thought about the matter a lot and wondered if he could do it. If a core can be formed, where would it be? Was it in the organ of the human body or in the internal space where tissue fluid flows? After reading the idea, Alex thought that he could collect mana in one place, but he didn't know if it would take shape as a core. The core was similar to an engine that would run the body and be supplemented by mana. The core is an engine. Alex's eyes glittered for a moment. Isn't the heart also an engine? That heart of mana? Alex could feel that he was getting somewhere. Since his heart is a storage of mana, if he can form a core there to increase its efficiency, wouldn't it mean he could improve his mana heart? Complain. Alex was pulled out of his thoughts by his stomach's cry for food. It was an interesting theory, one that seemed to have no end. After immersing himself in the knowledge, he began to feel hungry. I'll talk about that later. Let's stuff the food into Mini Alex. Carefully walking down the sturdy stairs, he slowly descended. It was empty and everyone seemed to be crowded into the cafeteria dining room at the moment. Alex entered the independent dining building, which had 3 floors. The lower floor consists of free food, while the upper floors consist of reserved rooms where you can reserve the spot and have your own space and be able to order all kinds of delicacies with money. The haughty ones usually take the reserved room because they can't bring themselves to sit with everyone. Alex took the tray of food and a glass of coffee and found an empty bench. The hostile stares seemed to lessen. Most of them were due to Ridaya, and he had generated aggression as soon as he entered. Some resigned themselves to fate while others desperately clung to chance. Ridaya may be crowned a goddess of beauty, though there may be some competition from Athena, so many weren't willing to give up without taking the risk. He looked around at the group of girls and couldn't find Ridaya. Both of them usually meet up during meal times, but Alex's schedule was becoming irregular as he became more and more immersed in books, forgetting about meeting times. Next time I should ask Ridaya to knock on my door when she comes to eat. Alex took a bite of the sandwich and raised his chin to see Ridaya enter the room. Seeing her, Alex finally sighed in relief and took a sip of coffee. Ridaya waved her hand and saw Alex, who nodded briefly. She was about to enter the line to receive food when she noticed someone walking towards her. "Miss Ridaya, could you please spare me some of your time? I wanted to exchange some friendly greetings with you and get to know each other better." A look of disbelief showed on everyone's face, and the place erupted into chaos, expecting to see a pleasant scene. The person who came to find Ridaya was Joey. He was the heir and only son of the Marquis' house. "I'm sorry, I have to ask the Lord about this," Ridaya said with an indifferent expression. Joey frowned and said, "Miss Ridaya, seeing as you call him by the honorific title, I guess you're forced to obey him. I, Joey, am a humble man. I can't tolerate anyone who uses their authority to bully the weak. Only spineless cowards use their authority. If you want, you can ask me for help." Joey spoke with a sincere expression. As Alex's senses had always been heightened by magic, he could sense a bit of her conversion. Pfffff. Alex spat out a coffee and coughed violently. Bully, weak, authority. Kid, if this girl were to get out of control, even your father would be crushed like rice in a crusher. Alex stared at the wolf who was trying to tempt his wife with a fierce gaze. Ridaya can be said to be the epitome of beauty, and she was still growing. Alex knew that it was too much for those young horns to bear, and many would have a hormonal imbalance just by looking at her. God was not fair. Besides her charming beauty, Ridaya's aura was enough to attract everyone. And let alone the boys. Alex was afraid that even some girls might be attracted to her, and that was too much. If Ridaya was a cunning girl who knew a little bit about acting, the entire academy might be destroyed by her. Ridaya stubbornly rejected Joey and didn't even spare him a glance, who looked quite helpless, which generated great empathy from the others. As she walked out, Joey's gaze fell on Alex and a cruel smile appeared on his face. Alex could naturally see malicious intentions in his eyes. And the next day, during the physical magic class, Joey challenged Alex. Chapter 261, Challenge. Every week on Saturdays, there would be physics classes where students could practice their spells and could also challenge each other. Learning and practicing are of great importance, otherwise everything learned in life would be useless if it cannot be put into practice. All the students in Alex's class were taken to the training camp, which could fit 1,000 students. It was decided to split it into two sections. On one side, the martial arts warriors were practicing, while on the other side were the mages. The current class was more inclined towards dueling than self-practice. Both classes could also challenge each other to get used to fighting various opponents, but it was only allowed once a month. You all have been making steady progress. Many of you have also reached the intermediate stage, and some of you can even cast level 5 spells at that age, said Professor Nina, who was the instructor of the practical class. You all have been learning for a year and a half and have progressed by leaps and bounds. Focus more on understanding and correcting the mistakes you've made in battles and try to spot your flaws. Before we start the matches, I want you all to know one thing. Spells aren't the main thing that determines the winning factors. Your focus, application, and versatility in using spells are also important factors. There were cases where basic spells were able to overwhelm intermediate spells, while some mages who don't have any natural attributes were able to use enhancement spells in such a way that they were able to outlast the others. Now, let's begin. She clapped her hands and looked at everyone. Do any of you want to start first? She asked casually. Miss, I want to challenge you. Joey, you can come forward. Nina nodded and called out to him. Everyone looked at Joey and could already imagine what would happen next. Joey had reached the rank of master early and was 20 years old. He was one of those who could cast intermediate spells between level 4 and level 5. Joey, taking heavy steps, walked up to the stage and began to walk down and said, I want to challenge Alex. What? Me? Alex exclaimed with a nervous expression and cringing back. His performance was enough to attract everyone's sympathy, but everyone knew how confident he was, so everyone thought he was trying to belittle Joey by indicating that Joey was bullying a newcomer. I'm a newcomer and I don't even know some basic spells, so why are you challenging me? Isn't that bad? Alex said in a panicked tone. You have no shame, coward, Joey sneered. After receiving everyone's gaze, Alex unintentionally steps onto the stage. Nina walked to the side to oversee the match, and meanwhile, the typical villain started the act and threw out his lines. You're destroying a precious flower. Leave her alone and I'll forgive your impudence. A flower like her doesn't go well with a cow dung like you, Joey muttered. Alex looked up and stared at Joey, who was bragging confidently. He was confident in his appearance, so how dare this bastard compare his stunning appearance to that of cow dung? Either the heavens must be blind or this man must be blind, unable to discern what true beauty is. Let the match begin, Nina shouted. Joey, who prepared to cast a spell, suddenly let out a muffled groan as he felt a sudden change around him, and his expression instantly changed. It was as if the gravity of the place had increased by many folds, or a huge mountain had been placed on his shoulder and was trying to bring him down to his knees. Kurg. Joey gritted his teeth, trying to stop his body from kneeling. Joey felt a suffocating pressure out of nowhere, but when he gathered his strength and was about to look forward, it instantly disappeared as if he had been hallucinating. What was that? Joey muttered between gasps and looked around. He could freely move his arms like before and felt as light as a feather. Maybe I messed up the spell or had a hallucination. Yeah, that must be it. Joey tried to calm himself down. Joey chanted his spell and the ground shook and large chunks of sharp rocks erupted from the ground and charged towards Alex in a swift movement. Rock spikes, Joey shouted. Alex calmly looked at the approaching rocks, pointed his index finger downwards and spoke with a relaxed expression. Gravity enhancer, DUUUSH. BAAAM. The rocks hurtling towards him suddenly stopped and sank into the ground, shattering into pieces. Alex increased the pressure and densified the air by increasing the density of the space around him by several margins relative to a large volume of air. The space around him was akin to 3 times the gravity of this world. Alex's eyes narrowed as he looked at Joey's bewildered expression. What kind of spell was that? Joey asked with a surprised expression. Alex wanted to laugh and make fun of this guy. This is where most people fail. The most important thing for a magician is imagination and vision. A simple low-level spell can be molded and twisted into various shapes. But many simply follow the traditional route and learn the spell they were taught or that was written in the book. Hey. What happened? Weren't you talking all sorts of nonsense earlier, calling me a coward and spineless? Alex's rude and blunt remarks shocked everyone, and the person the words were directed at was completely embarrassed. Joey gritted his teeth and raised his hand. 3 fireballs flew straight towards Alex in a line. As the fireballs flew, 3 firewalls appeared beside Alex, surrounding him. The raging fire almost surrounded Alex, and most of the students serving as spectators couldn't see his figure within it. Nina watched the scene and couldn't help but worry for Alex as she saw 3 huge fireballs exploding and hurtling towards Alex. She thought that Alex might panic since he was new, so she thought about stopping the match. Fireballs were basic spells, but explosive fireballs were intermediate spells, and the current spell was enhanced by overload. Moreover, the effective damage radius of these 3 fireballs was enough to cover all targets within a 50-meter radius. So if Alex couldn't neutralize the attack, he might die or be seriously injured for real. Nina also didn't know if Alex knew intermediate spells or not, and since the previous spell was new, she couldn't determine its type. Oh. So, we're playing with fire. Huh? Alex stared at the raging firewalls surrounding him and the fireballs heading towards him. Alex opened his palm, and a bluish flame appeared on his palm, and the firewalls around him seemed to recede and flicker as if they had met their king. The bluish color of the flame was due to increased explosive force, and under Alex's fine control, it burned purely because of the mana condensed within. It was a mini package that could create a huge explosion if needed. Chapter 262, Challenge 2. Little Fireball, please don't embarrass me in front of everyone. Your Lady Lord is peeking out from the side, so don't disappoint her, Alex muttered, and the fireball flickered happily. Alex clenched his fist, and the large flame condensed into a small egg that began to spin on his finger as he pointed it in front of him, throwing it out. The bluish fireball pierced through the firewall in front of Alex like a sharp sword, cutting through a city wall like butter. A 1-meter wide passage opened up in the raging firewall that didn't close even after the ball flew out. Bomb! The mini egg-shaped fireball collided with 3 giant fireballs in the air and exploded into dazzling fireworks. The seemingly harmless little cute fireball had released such terrifying power that even the explosive fireball's great power was overpowered by it, and the firepower continued to surge forward. There was a loud explosion of a flame cloud that spread towards Joey, trying to engulf him. Joey quickly chanted a wind spell and blew strong and fast winds to extinguish the flame cloud. As soon as the flame cloud dispersed, Joey was shocked to see Alex disappear from the stage, and a confused expression appeared on his face. Did I knock him out? Maybe the rebound was too much for him, Joey muttered to himself as he looked around. At that moment, he felt arms pressing down on his shoulder and a small current passed through his body. Kayak, he squealed like a pig and jumped back in fright but stuttered and fell back. I thought the small spark would be enough to keep you down, but I guess I underestimated you, Alex said and walked towards him with a smile. Joey's entire body stiffened, and he tried to cast a spell directly at Alex without thinking of the consequences, but he was horrified to see his entire body paralyzed and unable to make a sound. Alex leaned down, raised his index finger and thumb, placed them next to Joey's ears, and clicked his tongue. The small waves that emerged were distorted by Alex's spell that began to amplify next to Joey's ears, which was loud enough to burst his eardrums. Scream. The loud sound waves spread out like shock waves dragging through the air. Joey screamed with a pained expression, as if he had been burned alive, and made a loud reverberating noise. Everyone felt pain hearing the loud sound waves and closed their ears. The screeching sound was quite painful to the ear, and the frequency of the transmitted waves was far above what the human ear could handle. But Alex had no problems, as he could change the frequency of the voice reaching his ears by changing his surroundings, as the sound depends on several factors. Thud. With a loud thud, Joey fell to the ground. Everyone could see that Joey had fallen unconscious due to the unorthodox spells, and in a way, he was brutally beaten and carried by his nose. All Alex did was raise his fingers, and even his singing ended as soon as it started, which made him look in a different light to many. You're lucky you're in the academy and I've had mercy on you, otherwise if this had been off campus I wouldn't have let you go until I beat you to my heart's content, Alex snorted and walked across the stage gracefully. Professor Nina checked Joey's condition and breathed a sigh of relief seeing him fine and without even a trace of any injuries. Alex simply knocked him out without harming him. Upon receiving his signal, a stretcher was brought and he was taken to the infirmary while classes resumed as usual. After this, many challenged each other, and luckily Alex didn't get many challenges as others had chosen their opponents who they had grudges with, and no one wanted to waste their time on him. This was good for him because he could observe everyone and happily accept the task of marking the good apples. Dave, who was the highest-ranking disciple, walked up to the stage and challenged Hurt. Absolute silence reigned as soon as the challenge was issued. Even Professor Nina got nervous for Dave and spoke to him in a low voice. Dave, I think you should talk to another challenger. Now I just want to challenge him, Dave shouted stubbornly. Alex noticed the strange look everyone had on Dave. There was a mix of mockery, worry and pity. What's wrong with that Hurt kid? Alex muttered and looked around to see everyone standing to the side and a man with brown hair and blue eyes walking forward. Alex could feel a sense of intimidation emanating from the guy, and this guy was at the mid-master rank. At first glance, he could see that this boy was special. Hurt stood on the stage with a cold gaze, as if he had just emerged from reality after being frozen for 1,000 years. Only those who strive for the best can soar high in the sky, and my goal is to defeat the best and reach the top by defeating you, Dave said with a solemn expression. Alex listened to his speech and sincerely applauded this man who was displaying praiseworthy courage before being martyred. Dave summoned a huge sphere of wind that swept up high-speed winds in a 100-meter radius as if it were an approaching cyclone. Alex's hair fluttered, and he felt his hair being disheveled by winds so strong that they seemed to blow at over 100 kilometers per hour. Whoosh! Dave threw the huge sphere of compressed wind towards Hurt, and to Alex's surprise he found Hurt doing nothing and standing there like a statue. Aum. The sphere exploded, sending out terrifying blades of wind that were enough to massacre low-level monsters and beasts into pieces. Alex's eyes narrowed as he saw Hurt standing there motionless without a single scratch, as none of the sharp blades of wind pierced him. Alex deduced that the sphere must have come into contact with something that could make that thing explode, but surprisingly Alex couldn't find any encapsulation or barrier around Hurt. Chapter 263, Is he a reincarnator? Alex was a little far away from the stage so he couldn't notice anything substantial. He felt the space before Hurt fluctuate a little, but he wasn't sure if this was due to a spell or Dave's attack. A playful smile appeared on his face after seeing Hurt casting a spell without any movements. Wands or staves not only amplify the destruction of your spell, but also help them shoot towards a particular direction and guide the path. Without these, low-level wizards usually use hand gestures to direct the spell. Alex has to act like he's pointing with his finger or moving his fingers to direct spells to avoid being too conspicuous. And not to mention him, even that Monster Queen who can only cast spells silently acted to move his hands when casting spells, but Hurt was able to cast a spell silently at such a young age, which was something incredible, and he wasn't even hiding it. He wasn't the same as Hurt, as Alex had spent years while Hurt was actually 20, but Alex felt that this boy was somehow showing off. He was trying to prove his dominance. His eyes indicated that you are not worthy of even looking at me. While Alex is deep in thought at the side of another genius, the boy being watched is already prepared for his next move. "Don't challenge me again and waste my time," he muttered. Lightning burst. Suddenly, lightning danced around him, generating violent sparks that concentrated around him and let out a menacing laugh. Hurt raised his hand and condensed it on his fingers as he pointed it at Dave as lightning shot towards him. He still needs to make gestures while performing larger spells, Alex inferred. Dave didn't know how to create barriers and formed a wall of dirt in front of him as a protective measure. Everyone who was waiting and wondering what would happen next was suddenly shocked. No, it was a surprise only for Alex, as the others were already used to it. The lightning bolts pierced the distance between Dave and Hurt in an instant, and before Alex could scream in surprise, the lightning bolt pierced through the dirt walls as if it was nothing and there was no wall present. ZZZZZZPPPPPTTTTT. Dave's painful scream filled the air. The lightning bolt struck him like a whip and threw him off the stage with a loud impact. The lightning bolts burned his body and puffs of smoke began to emanate from his body. Flashes of lightning lingered, stinging his body as he writhed and screamed in pain. Thud. Dave's body fell like a doll to the ground with a thud. Dave's body twitched and moved like a worm, and there still remained a small flash that shot him sharply. His entire figure was covered in black soot and his well-groomed face had become blurry and disheveled. Many questions ran through Alex's mind and began to torment him. The lightning that pierced the wall could only be caused by some kind of special magic, which is the most difficult of all. It does not matter whether or not one has an affinity for special magic, but it depends on one's understanding of special laws along with the laws of the world. The storage ring needed one to have a certain knowledge of special magic to create such a ring, and Alex was unable to find such a ring because there were less than 1,000 such rings in Kinley, and the number of magic casters, the space magic in this world, was rather small, so using such a ring carried a greater risk. Teleportation was also space magic, and there were countless types of space magic, but more than that, the caster of space magic had an overwhelming advantage. People spend hundreds of years learning it, and if Hurt knew space magic, that means he is a genius who could defy the heavens similar to the protagonists, or he could be a reincarnated individual who was at the peak of power in his previous lives. Alex himself didn't know what kind of conclusion he was coming to, but the more he thought, the more strange and outrageous thoughts echoed in his mind, giving him an ominous feeling. Alex even used the eyes of truth to find any abnormalities, but except for superior potential, there was nothing strange. Hurt hadn't hidden his level, nor was there any mention of space magic talent on his profile. Alex had also hidden his rank, and only people who had power similar to Albert, Athena, and the higher members of the Wolf tribe could see his level, and his eyes of truth could see almost everything. The feeling of having someone with overflowing talent in front of you, about which you have no information, gives off terrible vibes. Some unpleasant memories began to come to his mind, but he pushed them away to see Hurt walking down. Alex followed the movement of Hurt, who walked towards the crowd that dispersed on both sides. Alex realized that he had to pass by his post so as not to complicate things. He stepped aside, clearing the way for Hurt. Alex's eyes unconsciously went to Hurt as he was about to pass him, but he stopped short and caught Alex's gaze. His face showed surprise, but Alex was just as surprised as him. Hurt smiled seeing Alex's face and said, "I'll be waiting for you on the stage." Hurt spoke weakly, but everyone near him heard his words and was shocked to hear his words. Hurt didn't just stand there and left when class was about to end. "System, tell me, did you sense anything?" "Host, I'm not sure, but he's someone who can't be trifled with." "How come the eyes of truth didn't show anything?" "Host, Your eyes of truth had 3 stages and had to evolve with you. I think the first stage isn't enough for you to figure out everything, host, no matter what happens when it comes to you. I don't think he stands a chance if you go all out. You're too cautious about everything, so you always overestimate every opponent. Overestimating others is much better than underestimating them. Besides, who knows, I might not be the only reincarnator and there might be many out there. No matter whether Hurt was a heaven-defying genius or a reincarnator, Alex had to keep an eye on this guy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264, Friendly Visit. In the infirmary. The wounded, after being treated, were placed on the bed. Joey, who had been knocked unconscious by a sound attack, opened his eyes and stared at the white ceiling above his head. A splitting headache assaulted him and he pressed his forehead trying to massage it to lessen the pain. Arg! A small moan escaped his lips and he felt his ears hurt. His ears were still ringing with a noise similar to a hammer hitting the walls, causing him to roll his eyes. He felt a little restless and laid down on the bed as he tried to relax a little. Alex. That bastard, Joey muttered as he gritted his teeth. You called me. Joey heard an unfamiliar voice and tilted his head to see an elegant figure sitting while flipping through the pages of a book. You, what are you doing here? He spoke with a surprised expression. His body unconsciously trembled and he closed his ears instinctively. Alex closed the book and looked at Joey with a cynical smile. As a classmate, I thought I'd visit you and apologize for sending you here. Joey felt his anger rising all over his head and said, Are you trying to humiliate me by coming here? I'm sure you have another motive for visiting me. Tell me, what do you mean? How clever. Alex nodded, put the book aside and crossed his legs. I heard you were running after my wife and trying to prove that you were better than me, Alex asked. So what? Since when did it become a crime to court a lady? Oh, that means that in the future when you're married, I can try to woo your wife as well, Alex said with a sinister expression and a threatening tone. Joey's hairs all stood up at Alex's words and he felt an invisible pressure on his shoulder. Beads of sweat formed on his head. After a moment of realization, he felt like he had spoken rashly. Your worth isn't even enough for my wife to grace you with her presence. Besides, I suppose you're just a scapegoat who's been cast aside, Alex asked, raising his eyebrows. Alex had observed the group of students. If his analysis was correct, Joey might also belong to a group. Although Joey had guts, Alex could see that this boy had been tricked and someone had simply added fuel to the fire by whispering sweet dreams to him, and this boy considered himself a hero who saved a damsel in distress. What do you mean by scapegoat? Tell me, who's the ringleader of that group? I don't know what you're talking about, Joey rebutted and looked away. Alex sighed and said, Joey, you have great prospects but you're ruining yourself by obeying some jerks who want to play childish pranks on you, instead of doing all that nonsense. If you had focused on getting better, maybe you wouldn't have ended up in the infirmary and mark my words, your life is going to be tough from now on. You'll be the center of laughter in the entire class and you'll feel alienated from others. Alex spoke and stood up. Don't ruin your life by mixing with those who don't even treat you as friends. I see potential in you. If you ever realize your mistake, you can look for me. Joey looked at Alex with a dazed expression. Seeing Alex walking away, numerous thoughts came to his mind and he gritted his teeth. He knew that he would soon be the laughingstock of the entire class. Alex's words made some sense. Although he wanted to show his dominance, he wasn't so big as to jump forward like a fool. I've been blinded by flattery and praise, he said through gritted teeth. Alex walked out of the infirmary and soon found a dark figure in the corner. Classmate Ridaya, did you need something from me? Classmate Alex, I have some doubts about my studies so I came here to ask you for guidance, Ridaya said. Alex smiled as he saw Ridaya call him by his name. Ridaya can't address him as Lord on campus so she was forced to call him by his name. And it sounded so sweet that Alex felt like her heart would melt the next moment. I thought you were going to the infirmary to beat him up until you got tired. Who did you take me for? A tyrant. Alex rolled his eyes. Ridaya giggled and Alex took her hand and they both walked towards the garden. Is it okay to hold hands? Ridaya asked in a nervous tone as they were both in public. We've already gone beyond holding hands and are now husband and wife. Compared to all the acts we've done, holding hands is nothing. If you want, we can even kiss here, "Get away, you bad wolf," Riya complained with a nervous expression. They were both sitting on the garden bench, filled with various flowers that emanated a pleasant smell due to the gentle cool breeze. Riya rested her head on Alex's shoulder and gazed at the beautiful sunset. Alex talked about his daily life here while Riya shared her own experiences. They both enjoyed the peaceful moment, but they heard a small scream that interrupted their fun. "Damn it," Alex cursed and looked around. Riya hurriedly stood up. After all, she couldn't ruin her image of a proper lady. Previously, she used the veil to hide her face, which made her a little indifferent, but now that her face was exposed, she can't do whatever she wants. "Did you hear anyone crying and moaning in pain?" Riya asked. Alex nodded with a solemn expression and said, "It seems like someone is being bullied. Bullying is very common here. And it's worse when it comes to people of lower status," Riya muttered. "Let's take a look," Alex said, and they both stood up and headed towards the source of the sound. Chapter 265, Bullying or Not? Alex and Riya rushed towards the place filled with dense trees. Alex and Riya nimbly moved between the trees and jumped over one of them and watched the scene from the branch. The three big chubby boys surrounded a boy of similar age with a sinister expression. They threw a few punches and used the boy as a punching bag. The trio failed to detect them and continued with their usual tasks. The boy who was beaten pitifully did not give up, and his eyes burned with an emotion that showed his immense persistence. He was filled with anger and hatred directed towards the aggressors. "Ha ha ha, you said you would be the sharpest sword in Kinley, my foot," one of them said and spat on the ground. The other two followed the boss and copied his movement. As they continued to mock Jeremy, Alex looked at Riya and whispered, "This boy's talent is not good, but he has strong willpower." "Jeremy is unlucky," Riya added. "Huh?" Alex got Riya's strange look. "You don't know him?" Riya questioned. Seeing Alex's curious look, she spoke up. "He's in the martial arts department and he's also a second-year student, but he's in another class. When he enrolled, in the opening speech, he bragged that he was going to be the sharpest swordsman, Kinley, and he became a swordsman who could even kill a dragon, and those words hurt this brain-dead, selfish bastard," Alex said, trying to hold back her laughter. "But I can't blame them. Unless you have the talent to back it up, one must keep a low profile. But these idiots are too proud to do that." Alex shook his head helplessly. Alex didn't know anything about the future, but this guy's behavior is suitable for being a protagonist who gets savagely beaten and then sets the stage on fire. But was this guy boasting without any force to back him up, or was it just an illusion created by him? Alex felt that something was quite wrong about this. "This is interesting, boss. Let's give him our daily dose and leave. It'll be dark soon." The boss cracked his knuckles and bared his white teeth as he lunged at Jeremy. Jeremy dodged to the side and evaded the attack, but the henchman kicked him, and before he could do anything, the trio pounced on him. At that moment they heard a voice from behind. "Hello, gentlemen." The trio stopped in their tracks when they heard a sound from behind and turned their heads to see Alex standing there with a goofy grin. "Alex, turn a blind eye and leave. This has nothing to do with you." The gang leader stood up and spoke. "Can, I know this has nothing to do with me, but the sight of you ganging up on him disgusts men. Can't you just take him somewhere else? It's our choice and our territory." "What right do you have to butt in here?" Can shouted, but his words were drowned out as he saw Alex disappear from his spot, and the next moment he was standing in front of him. "Were you saying something?" Alex's eyes flashed dangerously and a slight fear tingled in Ken's heart. "Who the fuck do you think you are?" One henchman couldn't hold it back and ran towards Alex, raising his fist. Alex tilted his head and looked at the very cute being charging towards him. Just as the henchman's fist appeared above his face, Alex threw his head back and quickly took a step back. The movement was too fast for the henchman to follow, and his fist missed Alex's face by an inch. Alex tilted his feet, and the henchman stumbled from the remaining momentum, causing him to fall to the ground, causing him to eat dust and dirt. "Oh my god, you should run carefully so you don't fall and hurt yourself," Alex laughed. The other's face turned red in anger, but unlike the previous one, he didn't immediately run to attack and asked his boss for permission. Can nodded his head slightly to give permission. "What are you doing?" Alex's smile grew wider and his lips curved upwards. The second henchman, Roni, clenched his fist, covering it with ore, and threw a fist. A small crystal appeared in the air first and shot towards Alex. "Childish," Alex snorted and flicked his finger. The fist was hit by an invisible mass of pressure and shattered, to the surprise of Roni, who couldn't even guess if Alex used a spell or an aura. "You He shouted and walked up to Alex and threw a few fists. Alex took a step back as he narrowly dodged the blows by tilting his head. He looked at Can's face, whose expression was already distorted. Can was at the early disciple rank, and these guys were at the peak squire rank, while Jeremy seemed to be at the mid-squire rank. Alex's palm pierced through Ronnie's fist, and he held his wrist with one hand and put his finger with the other on his chest. Gust of wind, Alex muttered. A small ball of wind condensed in his chest, and a strong force seemed to permeate inside Ronnie, who suddenly flew backwards into the air as if he had been kicked hard. Can, who couldn't understand what was going on, was too late to notice Ronnie coming his way. Shit, bam. Ronnie crashed into Can and they both crashed into the tree trunk and were knocked unconscious. Get out of here before I change my mind, Alex said, as he shook the dust off his hands. The trio quickly got up and ran out pulling their tails. Alex walked over to Jeremy, who seemed unconscious. Riya landed beside him and stared at Jeremy, whose face had been badly beaten. Blood was dripping from his nose and lips. Should we take him to the infirmary? Riya asked. Alex simply smiled, shook his head and said, Brother Jeremy, you can get up. There's no need to act anymore. I know you're awake. Riya's eyes widened, and she looked down to notice a slight fluctuation in Jeremy's expression and beads of sweat forming on his face. Jeremy opened his eyes and looked at Alex and Riya and asked, how did they know? Alex smiled and spoke while puffing out his chest arrogantly. Your acting skills are too amateurish. You need to polish your skills and seek guidance from a master. You can only fool those idiots, but not me. Your strength doesn't lie in rank. The word startled Jeremy and he was alarmed by Alex's words. Chapter 266, Celestial Exoskeleton. I'm a weak warrior who wants to be the strongest swordsman in the world. Look how badly I've been beaten and thrown away like trash, Jeremy sobbed sadly. But that doesn't mean I'll give up on my dreams easily. One day I'll prove to everyone that even trash like me can achieve the goal I've set for myself after persevering through a path filled with hardships. Applause. 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 Alex clapped with an excited look as he thought that the boy really needed some training. His exaggeration was giving everything away. Alex reached out his hand and said, okay, enough talking. Get up, you need to get treatment quickly. Jeremy pondered for a moment and took Alex's hand as the latter lifted him up. Alex grabbed his hand tightly and as he pulled him up, he threw his hand away and twisted his body around, throwing a kick. Bang! A small shockwave spread out. A gust of wind swept everywhere as a strong pressure emanated from the collision. Riya, who was standing at the side, was already shocked as she witnessed the scene that happened. Alex, who was speaking in a friendly tone, suddenly sneaked an attack on Jeremy and the kick contained at least a third of his entire strength, but to her utter horror, Jeremy was able to defend the blow without moving an inch. Why did you attack? Jeremy asked with a menacing expression. If he didn't react, he might be seriously injured or die for real, so he abandoned all his pretenses. Alex smiled and backed away as he stared at him. I think my guess just now turned out to be true, didn't it, Jeremy? Alex said as he rubbed his chin. Your current rank is a squire, but your physical strength is that of a master rank. You have the heavenly exoskeleton. Both Riya and Jeremy jumped back in shock. How did you know? Jeremy shouted. He had one of the legendary physiques for real, Riya said in a trembling voice. There were two types of heavenly skeletons. The first was the heavenly endoskeleton, where mana can be stored in the bones along with vessels. The amount of mana they could store was insane and was many times more than their mana heart. One could imagine their prowess in ancient times when everyone who awakened used the mana heart, and a guy who was born with this physique was destined for greatness. The second was the heavenly exoskeleton. Unlike the previous ones, it possesses an impediment to accumulating and channeling mana, but instead, it provides him with a very strong physique. Enhanced strength and a body as hard as steel or even other metals. These kinds of people were simply bulldozers who could crush and squeeze their opponents into dried meat. But they have to go through very harsh and cruel training. It can be compared to body cultivation, where one has to suffer immense pain and discomfort. The more you train your body, the stronger you become. Getting beaten and hide until you're black as blue can also serve as training. You're trying to build up aggression and get beaten up. I've never seen someone as eager to be bullied as you are. Jeremy's face turned red in embarrassment. If it was said that he was eager to get beaten up, everyone might think he was a masochist. No, what the hell am I thinking? I should think about getting rid of this guy first so that my secret doesn't get out. Since you know my secret, I can't risk leaking it, so I have to deal with you and her now. Jeremy said with a serious expression and released a heavy pressure. He first decided to threaten them, and if worse came to worse, he would beat them up and make them swear to secrecy, but he didn't know that his words had provoked the sleeping tigress. He barely positioned his body and was about to take a step forward when he felt a terrifying pressure and the surrounding temperatures dropped slightly. His entire body trembled in fear as his body froze and his perception screamed danger. Ho-ha! He felt a suffocating aura overwhelming him and hallucinated the surroundings, turning red from an immense killing intent. He turned his head towards the source and saw that the lady who was cute and shy was now covered in a reddish-black aura from head to toe. Her hair fluttered wildly and a smiling, blood-covered face appeared in her sight, making her look like a demon sent from hell to strike her down. Just how many did you kill? Are you a murderer? Jeremy spoke the words before his throat went dry. Her aura was enough to suppress him completely, and if she made a move, he would surely meet his maker. Raya, that's enough. Withdraw your aura. The pressure and hallucinations disappeared and Jeremy fell to the ground breathing heavily. His entire body was drenched in sweat and his heart was beating rapidly. He was horrified at that moment. Raya, I was just joking earlier. There was no murderous intent in his words. If you had pushed him any further, even for a second, he would have wet his pants. Alex laughed. But, my lord, this guy was threatening you, and who knows if he had some kind of malicious intention to get rid of you. He may be leaving today, but who knows what kind of twisted thoughts may be running through his mind, Raya said. You are too kind-hearted, lord. This kind of person should not be underestimated. I think we should get rid of him. Jeremy's body trembled as soon as he heard Raya's opinion. Demon. This girl is definitely a demon. With such a face and body, she could have bewitched many and then killed them. No, with such a lovely body and face, she could be a succubus. Oh, God, please protect me. I'm at a loss. Jeremy started praying to God. Hey, you. From the way you act, it seems like you don't know us, Alex asked. Am I supposed to know you? Are you some kind of famous assassin duo or a psychopath and she's a succubus? Raya and Alex's jaws dropped when they heard this guy's description of them. Chapter 267, Monster Hunt. Alex, who was described as a killer, tried to hold back his laughter after hearing the image of Raya in Jeremy's heart. PFFTTT. He hadn't thought that someone would have the same thought as him, but he was even brave enough to say that right in Raya's face. Raya may look like a harmless, sweet, and cute kitten, but this kitten's claws were quite sharp. Alex stopped his laughter when Raya was already looking at him and might run after him to bite him. Hey, Raya, is this guy more out of this world than me? Alex looked at Jeremy and said, haven't you heard of the famous tales of the imbecilic 5th Prince of Kinley? Jeremy looked at Alex with eyes filled with disbelief. His body shuddered as if someone had struck him with a bolt of lightning. You want to say that you're the 5th Prince of Kinley, but why haven't I heard that you've enrolled in the academy? Jeremy scratched his cheek with an embarrassed look. It hasn't even been a week since we signed up, and you're some weird loner who's been cast aside, so who's going to tell you all this? Jeremy felt like the sharp comments had hurt him. You still want to silence me? Alex smiled. No. I was just joking, but please don't leak this secret of mine. We're in the same boat. You can't sell us out either, Alex said, raising his hand. From now on, you're my lackey. When did I agree to that? Jeremy asked. Listen up everyone, Jeremy had before Alex could scream. Jeremy shakes Alex's hand and says, Boss, please take care of me. Under my shadow there will be no one who can harm you. Alex smiled. Jeremy resigned himself to his bitter fate. Horizontal ellipsis. Professor Neon took the class and after finishing the lecture, he said, I have an important announcement for all of you. Alex snapped his eyes open and rubbed them. Small dark circles were already forming under his eyes. The past few days had been quite hard on him as he had little time to rest. Alex focused his attention on Neon's speech after witnessing the atmosphere of the entire classroom. Every single one of them seemed to be very serious, as if it was a matter of life or death. In 10 days, the monster hunting test will begin. All the students took a deep breath upon hearing the announcement. Some students were excited while others cowered in fear as if this was a terrible nightmare. Neon watched everyone's emotions and sighed. Every year, a monster hunt was held in which all students had to participate. There were points for killing monsters based on rank, and the winner who got the most points would be rewarded with a gift. The prospect may be good, but every year many people lose their lives due to the trial. It was a test of courage and perseverance. Professor Neon explained the details and said, You can either form a team or hunt alone. If you form a team, it should not have more than 5 members. The raid will continue for 3 days, and this time you are assigned to the Guafin region in the Western Kinley territory, so please everyone start preparing for the hunt, and remember one thing, your lives are more important than glory. If you encounter an opponent you can't face head-on, there's no shame in retreating. Professor Neon began to give advice and warnings to everyone. Alex learned that last year, 7 lost their lives even though they were in the initial area of the forest where only Squire-ranked monsters were found, so Professor Neon was worried about everyone's safety. Alex didn't know if training by hunting monsters like that was a good or bad thing. Before graduating, everyone needs to temper their minds and get used to killing, otherwise, everyone would be like Jeremy, who is easily knocked out with murderous intent even though he was quite strong. Alex, who stood up from his seat, rolled his eyes at the corner of the class as he saw Joey sitting alone. He was already kicked out of the group by his classmates. All those who used to surround him and fawn over him by licking his boots were now trying to keep their distance from him. He had become the subject of jokes after losing like that. Alex used complicated spells that can't be categorized into levels and mainly depend on the user's strength, so everyone assumed that Joey was taken down by basic low-level spells, which further damaged his reputation. And the start of Monster Hunt now was like rubbing salt into the wound. Joey had great potential and was a pretty good mage and had a bright future ahead of him if he could improve his attitude and outlook. He seriously needs an attitude adjustment, and Alex had tried to bring about that by saying all those things in the infirmary. Alex found him as a potential candidate to befriend, and that's also one of the reasons why Alex had been lenient towards him. Joey, let's see what you're going to do now. Are you going to let yourself be defeated and take the wrong path, or are you going to rise out of despair and shine gloriously? It's all in your hands. What are you thinking? Alex heard Ria's seductive voice and turned his head. You're getting prettier by the day, Ria. I might have a heart attack if this keeps up, Alex said, clutching his chest. Enough. We're in the classroom, Ria said with a shy expression. Her cheek blushed a little at Alex's flattery. Answer my question, Ria said after composing herself. I think we might have another ally before or after the monster hunt if everything goes well, Alex spoke and stared at Joey, who looked worried and rather out of place, giving him an expression like he had lost something precious. Chapter 268, Martial Arts Class. At the academy, each student was given a couple of options. Each class had different schedules and many classes ran even during the break period. Even if a student had not chosen a particular course, if they had free time, they could attend a class they had not signed up for and sit at the back of the class to learn something. But this is done under the premise that they do not create disturbances in the other classes. Alex in his free time would wander around and sneak into these classes to find anything that could be useful to him. In order to become truly unrivaled and unmatched, he needed more experience, knowledge, and insight. He needs to train himself both physically and mentally. On this path to conquest, he also needs some trustworthy companions. Every week, Alex would compile all the knowledge and things he had been taught into his diary. He would keep one copy for himself and send the other to Leonhard along with some reference materials. Ian was studying at Leonhard and was making steady progress. Alex also wrote down some scientific knowledge and passed it on to his father. All of this would become the building where the children would study at the institute he founded. If he were given the choice between living as a king and living as a student, he would surely choose the student's life. His current life was rather peaceful. In Nevin, he either had to do paperwork or think about a policy. The little free time he had between one mission and another was spent leading his soldiers. But now it seems that he is studying and shaping the fundamental law of the universe through magic, which is very fun. The only bitterness he has is that he misses his wives a little. Alex After finishing his magic class, Alex decided to go to the library to look at some books, but as he passed by the hallway, his gaze stopped at the influx of students entering the classroom. Alex saw Ria and thought, why don't I check out the martial arts class? The honor teaching staff and the general teaching staff were different. Although Alex found the teachers to be quite competent, he found the teacher of his general martial arts class to be quite clumsy. His teaching was quite flawed and was not liked by many. Those attending his class were mages who wanted to hone their hand-to-hand combat skills so they could become battle mages. Alex entered the classroom and to Ria's surprise, he winked at her and blew her a sneaky kiss. It made her remember her previous college life where couples would openly flirt with each other in between classes, causing many to turn red and green with jealousy. Since they were already a couple, there was no need to hold back. It was time to get revenge. With a soft smile, Alex walked up the small steps and took his spot at the far corner of the 10th row. He wanted to sit next to Rhea, but as per the rules, he sat at the back, and even if he blatantly sat next to her ignoring the rule, the professor might kick him out after seeing him paying more attention to Rhea than the class itself. Horizontal ellipsis. The class started, and after listening to the lecture, Alex felt drawn to it. He couldn't even feel the passage of time. Instructor Edwin was at the mythic rank and seemed to be quite well versed in combat. It was 100 times better than the Goddess of War class, where he was being thrown around like a sandbag. Alex could see the fire burning in the eyes of the students being taught as a result of passionate words. Warriors were considered inferior to mages, but Edwin's words stirred their spirits. He explained the basic requirements to become a warrior: strong mental fortitude, daily practice, resilience to endure pain, and an unwavering will to get up after being defeated. Kicks, strikes on weak points, parries, elbows, knees, punches, and various evasion tactics, along with well-coordinated stances and footwork, can facilitate defense, attack, or both. Your mind is the center of everything, while the body is just a puppet. Remember, you can lose half the battle if you falter before the match even begins. No matter how much fear you have, no matter how much voice rings in your head for you to give up, you need to overcome fear and fight to give it your all. Realm and strength don't decide everything. Sometimes with techniques, you can make a huge leap in battle, Edwin explained with a serious expression. Edwin saw a boy raise his hand and allowed him to ask his question. Professor, according to you, what is the best weapon to fight with? The boy asked curiously. Edwin nodded and asked him to sit down. It's a good question. Most weapon users are proud of them, but believe me, there are no absolutely better or worse weapons. Weapons are just a way of manifesting yourself. A tank with a shield shows bravery, a swordsman shows eloquence, and an archer shows his meticulousness. Everything has its advantages and disadvantages. Only those who can be skilled enough to use the weapon can overcome the disadvantages. In the use of the weapon, they can become true masters in life, Edwin muttered. The question section continued as he gave a fundamental lecture and pointed out some flaws. As he answered everyone's questions, his gaze fell on Alex in the corner, who was listening to him intently, which surprised him. He was present at the meeting and saw Alex's live performance. He and Quinn could be considered rivals, and he knew Quinn like the back of his hand. Quinn praised Alex, which meant that he was an exceptional magician, but he always had the feeling that this boy was equally strong in martial arts. You could say it's a sixth sense or a premonition of a warrior. Under that slim and slender body lies a true beast versed in all kinds of combat. Chapter 269, Yvonne's Visit. Alex walked out of the classroom and stretched his back. Hi, I have some free time today. Alex took a deep breath, filling himself with the sweet scent of flowers carried by a gentle breeze as he looked at the sun above. The weather in the capital was rather relaxing. It was neither too hot nor too cold. Rhea must be practicing in an embroidery class right now. I don't know why she was so obsessed with this course. I shouldn't disturb her. I should finish the second volume of physics and the first volume of chemistry. Before that, I should copy the library book on articulation of marvelous magic, Alex muttered, rubbing his chin. As Alex walked towards the library, he was greeted by one of the guards who hurriedly searched for him. Alex saw a guard drenched in sweat, as if he had just gone through a series of combat training. Alex knew the man who usually acts as a messenger. Hello, Mr. Reed. Hello, Alex. Someone is looking for you. Would you come out or ask them to come in? He asked. Who is looking for me? Alex asked. He couldn't remember anyone who knew him well enough to visit him. He needed to know the person's identity in order to decide whether he should go out or ask them to come over. If it was someone he didn't know beforehand, it was best to meet them on campus so that person couldn't act against him if they had bad intentions. Reed began to sweat profusely and seemed reluctant to reveal the name. Who exactly is the person you're afraid of? Reed turned his head from left to right to see if there was anyone near them and whispered, It's Princess Yvonne. Alex's mouth dropped open, and before Reed could react, he pulled Reed and ran towards the doors. The proud goddess of wealth had come to visit. This was a huge shock to him, and it would be rude of him to keep the princess waiting. Alex's eyes were almost blinded at the sight of the huge carriage outside the doors that was drawing too much attention. The carriage was as large as a two-story building and was pulled by 20 horses. Did she have to show off and flaunt her wealth like this? Everyone knows about her wealth. Lockhart and money are opposite sides of the same coin. A man walked up and informed him that there was a large spot on the carriage and that Miss Yvonne was waiting for him there. Alex nodded and entered the carriage. Alex entered the coffee shop-like room and saw the red-haired beauty sitting gracefully at the table. Yvonne, what a surprise. I know you can't wait to see that handsome, dashing husband of yours, but what's the rush? Alex laughed. Yvonne rolled her eyes and said, I'm too tired to argue with you. I see you're trying too hard. In that case, let your husband massage your shoulder. All your stiffness will just disappear, Alex muttered and had already rolled up her sleeves. Stop. I'm not tired. I've been full of energy. So stop and sit quietly, Yvonne shouted in a panic. Massage, who knows how much profit you'll get out of me in return for a simple massage, Yvonne snorted. Alex sat down with an amused expression and said, since you've come here that means the matter is something important. I came to deliver the potions and equipment. Alex blinked a few times as she searched for falsehood in his expression. Alex had sent a letter to Yvonne asking for top-grade potions and some equipment. He wanted to prepare well for the monster hunt. Since Jeremy was going to join them, he had to buy him some armor since the poor guy didn't have any, but who knew that the princess would come in person for the delivery? The situation was too much for him to digest. Wait? Maybe she really is worried about my well-being and came here to visit me. My goodness. Sister Athena, it seems like your advice is working. Seeing Alex lost in thought, Yvonne sensed that the man was thinking something wrong and knocked on the table to wake him up. I don't know what you're thinking, but I didn't mind delivering the things. Don't think that I'm your delivery boy. Alex's hopes shattered like glass and gritting her teeth she said, she's a delivery girl, not a man, unless you consider yourself. A thick vein bulged on her forehead and she began reciting the calming sutra, inhaling and exhaling. She had already learned her lesson that you can't win with words against this madman who was brave enough to blow up the castle's gates. Listen, I have news about Golfin. Alex's playful and joking expression vanished as if the previous expression was an illusion and his eyes became sharp with a complete seriousness that even scared her. This man changes his expression so quickly that he can scare anyone. One moment he's laughing and the next he's emitting a bone-chilling coldness. There's trouble in Golfin. According to the information I've received, undead have been sighted near there. How did you know? We provide supplies to the fortress and there are also trade routes in it, Yvonne explained. Undead? If there is such a dire situation, why does the academy choose such a troublesome place? Alex asked. That hunting ground is only for the second year, and while other years have been assigned another hunting ground, now then, your admission into the academy and being selected for such a troublesome position are too much of a coincidence, aren't they? Yvonne said curiously. Doesn't the professor know? Even if someone deliberately attacks me, isn't the risk too great? If there is a high-ranking undead, the casualties will be too great and even the professors may die, Alex spoke while tapping his armpit. Either they knew and ignored the risk factor or someone is preventing them from receiving the information, Alex deduced. Be careful, Alex, and if you get the chance, you should back off if possible. There's no need to take such a risk, Yvonne said with a worried expression. Alex's heart warmed as he saw the anxiety in Yvonne's tone. I can't back out, but I promise I'll keep myself safe, Alex said. My heart warmed a little seeing you worry about me, blah. Who worries about you? I'm worried about Rita. I don't want anything bad to happen to her in your company, Yvonne said and shook her head nervously. Alex shook her head and stood up. Her image instantly blurred. Yvonne was startled and before she could react, a pair of warm hands wrapped around her. I know, Yvonne, you don't like me and you hate my guts, but I promise I'll try to be a good husband that you can be proud of and realize that marrying you is one of the best decisions you've ever made in your life. Yvonne wanted to speak but her body froze when Alex stroked her hair. Her face flushed and her face started to heat up and she couldn't push him away. At that moment, Athena's words rang in her ears and she used them to tease me. You can pretend all you want, but once you find yourself in her arms, you can't let go of that warmth, that feeling of being cared for and protected by someone. One day you'll become addicted to her. Yvonne shook her head and thought that Athena's shameless words were ruining her perception. We'll have plenty of time to be affectionate in the future, Alex said and gave her a kiss on the cheek. Alex ran away as soon as he took advantage of her, otherwise, who knew he could be hit by a flying shoe? Alex's words puzzled Yvonne but more than that, the gentle gesture left her speechless. Her face looked like that of a shy maiden and smoke could even be seen coming out of her head. You scoundrel, you only know how to take advantage of me, Yvonne shouted and stomped her legs but even after that, Unknowingly a small smile appeared on her face to her displeasure. "It's not that I hate you," Yvonne murmured, but her voice was as soft as a mosquito. Chapter 270, The Beginning of the Monster Hunt. 10 days passed quickly. Alex was fully prepared for the hunt. He had received a sword as a gift from his beloved wife. The name of the sword was Outclasser. It was an artifact that could increase damage and attack effectiveness. For a magic swordsman, this sword was pretty good. Alex had formed a 3-man team with Raya and Jeremy. The proud and conceited Joey had decided to strike out alone and prove the others wrong. If a boy wanted to kill himself, what could Alex do? Warrior and magician were a good combination, and before they left, Alex had put a tracking spell on Jeremy and Raya. Before the day of departure, Alex received a letter from Yvonne wishing him good luck. There was a trade route near Gulfin that supplied resources to the militia, and in case of any trouble, Yvonne had advised him to seek her help. She is that Sundeer, who tries to remain indifferent and play hard to get, but cares for others from the bottom of her heart. The dense forest was guarded by the Gulfin fortress, where 14,000 men were stationed guarding the place. The place was quite dangerous, and there had been many cases of monster outbreaks previously. The entire security of the Gulfin fortress and the village area surrounding the place is under the military garrisons, and the place was not under the control of any nobles. The location of the assault was 100 kilometers away from the fortress, near a small town called Bark Village, where the students were stationed. Before the start of each season, a team was sent out to defeat the monsters and keep them under control. And the students of Zenith Academy had to do this job. After a 3.5-hour journey, they arrived at the entrance of Leaf Village, which was not as crowded as Alex expected. The village was rather deserted, and very few people remained there after a monster outbreak. Professor Neon took possession of his class and said, "Each of you will be given a bracelet. The bracelet will record your kills and award points to be recorded. This watch will only record the monsters you have killed. After 3 days, the one who has earned the most points will win. If you encounter trouble and wish to retreat, tap the red button, which will send us a distress signal, and we will try to contact you as soon as possible. Don't be greedy for a few points and lose your lives. This entire operation is carried out so that you have a real experience." Alex, Raya, and Jeremy with the other students gathered at the edge of the green area and waited for the signal. A teacher appeared out of nowhere and told them, "The monster hunting course will officially begin now. Good luck and stay safe." "Oh yeah, let's go. I'm going to crush you all." The students cheered loudly before dispersing in groups into the vast wilderness of the forest. Alex let others take the lead. He was in no hurry. He planned to let Jeremy temper himself and gain some practical experience, which he greatly lacks. The only thing Jeremy was good at right now was being a meat shield that can take a few hits. He wanted to be the sharpest sword, but his stance and position on the sword were so poor that even Alex considered himself better when he first started. Alex even tried to persuade him to stop using the sword and use his hands and feet to fight, but the fool was determined to wield a sword even though he lacked basic knowledge. After being beaten up all day, Jeremy was too lazy to concentrate in class and fell asleep most of the time. Alex stared at Raya, who nodded briefly and disappeared from the spot. Jeremy has already met him a couple of times, but he still can't get used to Raya appearing and disappearing here and there out of nowhere. "Jeremy, have you hunted any monsters before? How did you fare in monster hunts previously?" Alex asked him as they traveled through the desert. "It took me a lot of effort to get into a group, and after some bad experiences, we were finally able to survive the 3 days. I wasn't able to kill any monsters, but I had fought many," Jeremy said proudly. "Why don't you tell the truth, that you were abandoned and beaten by a monster until your group snuck in and killed the prey?" "Hey, how did you know? Are you a fortune teller too?" Jeremy asked with a curious expression. "I can even predict people's deaths." "Do you want to know?" Alex said with a smirk. Jeremy gulped at Alex's terrifying look and shook his head. "There's a monster up ahead," Alex muttered and cast a spell. Even before Jeremy could react, he heard the sound of an explosion along with chunks of flesh scattering through the air. Alex looked at his watch, and his points that were at 0 had increased to 10. "The squire rank gives only 10 points, Alex said with a sigh. "I don't know what the others think, but the disciple rank gives 100 and the master rank gives 1000, Jeremy reported. Alex rubbed his chin. "Will the watch count points if I kill a human?" Jeremy's entire body trembled and he took a step back. "I'm not talking about killing, but I'll change my mind if you think of weird stuff," Alex said nonchalantly. pointing out that he can kill people with the back of his hand. "Now stop gaping at me and get to work," Alex shouted and pushed Jeremy forward. Jeremy saw a huge horned boar glaring at him. "You'll be my prey," Jeremy roared and ran towards it while brandishing the sword in his hands. Alex, who was watching the encounter intently, flinched a little as he heard a painful cry. A figure covering a semicircle crashed into a tree. At the end of round 1, horned boar. 1 point. Jeremy 0. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271, The Beginning of Monster Hunt 2. Jeremy's grandfather was a servant in the noble house, but due to an unfortunate incident, he lost his position. Their lives weren't any worse and they were still able to live well even after that incident. When Jeremy was born, unlike other children, he didn't cry at first and his body was quite hard, which was horrifying to his family. Also, the 2-month-old newborn calf could break a finger if he grabbed it wrong. As he grew, his body ached due to the pain in his joints. They deemed it to be quite abnormal and decided to find doctors. After so much back and forth, a hidden doctor was able to assess his physique and inform his family that he had been blessed with a heavenly exoskeleton. For a mediocre family like theirs, it was more of a curse than a blessing, so they decided to keep it a secret until he grew up and was strong enough to fend for himself. Since they were just servants of nobles before, they weren't experts in fighting and none of them were awakened, and they didn't want to take the risk of hiring a master who could guess about their physique. After getting stuck to the tree trunk, Jeremy appeared with a fiery expression. He didn't let go of his sword and leaped towards the horned boar and swung his sword with all his might. The boar dodged the moves while Jeremy's sword tore and destroyed everything. Alex sighed as he watched Jeremy's senseless moves. Jeremy had a good brain but he turns dumb when it comes to fighting. "Jeremy, don't move so much and just stay there," Alex shouted. "But didn't that mean the boar would crash into me?" Jeremy asked in disbelief. "Just do as I say." Jeremy followed and stood in place as the boar lunged at him, aiming its horn at him and trying to tear him apart. "Jeremy, take a deep breath and drag your right foot back while tightening your grip. When I tell you to, lean forward and stab." Jeremy nodded as he kept an eye on the enemy. Now, Jeremy heard Alex's voice and followed his advice. As soon as Alex's voice dropped, Jeremy pressed his left foot forward and, moving his shoulders back a little, stabbed forward with all his might. Silence. As if an invisible arrow had been shot, something hit the boar and before he could react, something passed him by. With the boar's remaining momentum, it charged towards Jeremy but was split into 2 halves and went in 2 different directions. Jeremy was astonished by its attack and stared at his sword. "Wow, what was that? Did I do that?" Jeremy shouted happily. "That's what happens when a human fights properly instead of jumping around like a monkey. Your body is less prone to injury, so most of the time you use your body as a shield and fight head-on. In this period, I will teach you how to focus and control yourself, and there's no better way than to learn through practical experience, isn't there?" Alex smiled. Jeremy didn't know why, but Alex's smile resembled the smile the devil casts when he whispers in someone's ears tempting them to do a bad deed. Alex and Jeremy went deeper into the forest as they fought with the monsters. Alex was doing his job, which was more about babysitting than fighting. Alex was shocked to see when a wolf with the rank of a squire sneaked up on Jeremy and bit his shoulders, but the wolf's teeth caught up to him and he couldn't tear Jeremy's hands off. If it were someone else, the hands might get torn apart. Alex healed Jeremy after Jeremy killed the wolf. Alex didn't know if it was because the wolf was a pup or because Jeremy's body was too tough in the real sense. After several hours of combat, they thought about retreating and resting. Alex saw that Jeremy had completely let his guard down and noticed the sound of rustling in the bushes. As he surveyed his surroundings, his eyes widened and his image flickered. Suddenly Jeremy felt a strong grip on his neck and screamed in panic. "Kayak, AUMM." Jeremy was thrown back like a ragdoll by Alex and in the previous place, he stood up and had a large crater. Jeremy stood up and saw a mace-tailed monkey standing in front of Alex. They had large stone balls at the end of their tail which they hit their opponents with. The monkey roared and spun its body. Its tail shot out like a whip aiming towards Alex. Alex jumped back doing a somersault in the air while shooting an ice spike at monkey. The monkey swung its stone ball and blocked the ice block. Monkey leaned forward with his arms and ran towards Alex. Alex stomped his foot and a small trap hit Monkey's arms and he was stuck in place. He saw a jaw-shaped rock with a sharp edge biting into his hand. He winced in pain and swung his tail to break it, but at that moment, a vine sprouted from the ground and grabbed his tail. Rock bullet! A small piece of rock shot towards Monkey and flew past his head, bursting his head open. Alex turned his head and ran towards Jeremy. These monkeys always come in groups. More might come. Let's go, Alex said and pulled Jeremy along. Darkness was already descending upon them and Alex didn't want to fight dozens of them with disadvantages imposed on him. Right now, he could only use a fraction of his strength and couldn't reveal everything. Screech. 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 Alex heard screams and roars from behind and saw hundreds of club-tailed monkeys chasing them. Every branch of the tree was loaded with monkeys jumping from one tree to another. Alex stopped dead in his tracks and cast spells. The ground behind them rumbled and huge ice walls emerged, which was followed by a snowstorm that swept over the monkeys and froze them completely. Chapter 272, Outbreak of the Undead. After a long run, they were finally able to shake off the gang of monkeys chasing them. Ho-ha ho-ha, silence. Jeremy collapsed on the ground as he leaned his back against a tree trunk and breathed heavily. The first day had already squeezed out every ounce of his strength, and the last run had exhausted everything he had, and now Jeremy thought he couldn't even lift his fingers, let alone walk. Alex stared at the dead weight that was on the verge of dying and set down his backpack. He wondered if he should cast a spell to replenish his stamina but shook his head. This was all part of body tempering training. Alex took things out of the backpack. It contains a tent big enough for him and Riaya to huddle in, but Riaya refused and brought her tent. Riaya, keep an eye on the place while I cut up some meat and cook the food, Alex muttered and rolled up his sleeves to get to work. Alex lit the firewood and roasted the meat, adding some seasoning and spices with a pot to make the stew. Alex used the boar and antelope meat to make the food, and after finishing her work, she passed a bowl to Jeremy while taking another bowl, placing another one near the firewood. Riaya's figure materialized from the shadow and sat down beside Alex. Riaya took a bite of the stew and licked her lips. She thought that her lord could cook so well while she couldn't even cut things properly. She was only skilled in cutting humans and monsters, but not food. Sir, have you noticed anything? She asked with a solemn expression. Alex nodded and said, those monkeys weren't chasing us, rather they seemed to be running away from something, and yes, can't you just freely call me Alex like in the academy? Oops. Sorry, Riaya stuck out her tongue with a curt expression. Alex, do you think maybe they were running away from the undead? Riaya spoke as she looked at Alex's solemn gaze. Alex pondered for a moment and said, Riaya, I think our guess may be wrong this time. Maybe it's not us who's targeted, but the entire group of second-year students. Riaya's eyebrows twitched a little and she fell into deep thought. Riaya, what did you observe while scouting the area? Did you find any strange places? Alex asked. A little north of the place where the monkeys attacked, I sensed an ominous aura, Riaya replied. Alex and Riaya began to discuss the matter, but stopped when they heard the sound of the bells. Tang! 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 Alex and Riaya quickly stood up from their seats when they heard the sound of the bell. Retreat signal from above. Before they left, they were ordered to run towards Bark Village if they heard the sound of the bell. This indicated that there had been an emergency, and everyone asked to turn back. Wake that idiot up! Alex stood up and began packing things up. He felt that tonight might be too long and too dark. In Bark Village, the teachers who were stationed were keeping track of the scores. They would all take turns and keep an eye on the students nearby. Each of them was assigned a spot where they would watch from behind and act if the situation arose to try to avoid casualties as much as possible. Everyone, listen to me, a teacher hurriedly came and shouted, I encountered undead on my way and they seemed to be coming here from all directions. All the teachers were startled by the news and hurriedly left the building. Neon was in charge of the second year as a whole and acted quickly. Go and ring the bell. Send scouts to bring the students back safely. Also, send the call for help to Galfin Fortress quickly, Neon said. Professor Neon, they're coming from the other direction as well. It seems they're trying to cut off our retreat. Shit. What mess have we gotten ourselves into? A teacher complained. Inform the guard stationed here. Everyone form a defensive wall and ask the guards to form the defense while we, the teachers, will try to bring the students in. Some of you start the attack and hold them at bay so the students can approach. Open the south gates so the undead will mainly come from there and use the others to take in the students. Neon and others gave the order. splitting up the teams and quickly advanced. The 120 guards stationed in the village under the command of Celestine, a legendary ranked warrior, quickly acted to form watchtowers with magic aid and began preparing for battle. After traveling for an hour, Alex, Jeremy, and Riaya arrived at the main gate and were shocked to see the massive amount of undead flooding the village. The mages had built large, earthen checkpoints to keep the situation under control. How will we get in? Jeremy was puzzled at the sight of the undead. Skeletons of monsters, beasts, and humans seemed to flood the entire place. Alex stared at the treasure trying to find a less dense post and found a narrow passage near the walls where a group of professors were keeping them at bay. It leads to the western gate of the village. Alex found that many students had already returned and taken their positions in defense and attack. There were archers and mages firing shots. I'll take the lead and cut away. Riaya, take Jeremy and go in, Alex muttered. Riaya nodded. Alex raised his sword and slashed. A strong gust of wind blew and all the treasure was immediately swept away. Alex released a mini tornado. The strong gust of wind swept the skeletons towards it, dismembering their bones and flying inside. Swish! The entire small army of skeletons was sent flying by Alex. Alex swung his sword, slicing through the treasure and reaching the passage leading to the gates. Along the way, he encountered many disciple-ranked undead led by a master-ranked one blocking him. Alex poured his mana into the sword to attack. Boom! 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 Small chains of explosions echoed out, and all the skeletons in front of him were burned and engulfed in fire. The master-ranked undead tried to fight back, but was instantly vaporized by a loud explosion that left a hollow crater in the ground. Don't just stand there, get in, a teacher shouted. Alex nodded as he saw the clear path before him and rushed forward. Like the swift wind, Riaya and Alex dashed through the fire, pulling Jeremy along like a doll. Alex cut down those remaining in his path with a piercing blow. Trash! Rumble! Rumble! The ground beneath him vibrated and bony clawed hands emerged from the ground. Alex leapt back and knocked Jeremy's hand away from Riaya, slamming his body into them and smashing them into pieces. Kick! Arg! Alex used Jeremy's body to brutally beat the undead without any trace of mercy, using Jeremy's body as a meat shield. Meanwhile, Jeremy could only scream and curse Alex in his mind. Chapter 273, Outbreak of the Undead 2. You sure are very useful. I don't need to use my sword and dirty it with these rotten, filthy bones, Alex nodded in satisfaction. Riaya took pity on Jeremy. She already had a feeling that Alex was going to use him in that manner. The trio safely entered the village and, without wasting any time, ran to the front lines to offer assistance. A man wearing full body armor stepped forward and shouted, "My name is Celestine and I am the captain of the guard stationed in Bark Village. We have relayed the news to Golfin Fortress. Reinforcements will arrive as soon as possible. Currently, we are surrounded by undead on all sides, so do everything in your power to survive until then. Now, everyone prepare for the upcoming battle. This may be your first war, but don't forget everything you've learned so far. Your current self is more than enough to deal with it all. Leave us to the stronger ones and deal with the minions," Professor Neon said, trying to ease the tension. "Archers, aim and load your bows and crossbows," Celestine ordered. All the archers loaded their bows and crossbows and took aim. Fire! Soon, a volley of projectiles rained down on the undead swarm, destroying the undead vanguard. Alex waved his hand and rows of fireballs floated above him and targeted the nearest undead. "Defend the walls as much as you can, don't let me break through the lines," Celestine shouted and rushed forward. "Hey!" The sound of hooves could be heard. Some students were foolish enough to think that reinforcements would arrive quickly and cheered, but Alex's face turned solemn. The sound of the horse drew closer and the expressions of the professor and guards hardened as they saw a horde of undead riding horses led by a Death Knight. The Death Knight leading the charge had black skin and black smoke was coming out of his head. He wore metal armor and had a sword in his hand. 2 pairs of green eyes shone from his dark figure. Everyone behind him seemed to be knights when they were alive, and coordination seems to be quite good for the undead. Alex felt uneasy at the sight of them. After exchanging blows with the endless undead, bones began to pile up at the base of the protective wall that began to raise the ground level, which the undead used as leverage to slowly climb up. Celestine and Neon decided to attack them, the group, first before they could gain a foothold. Hiss! A spell was fired towards the group, but the Death Knight stood up from his horse and charged forward while brandishing his sword. The spell was cut into 2 halves by his slash, much to Neon's surprise. Neon, accompanied by others, fired multiple shots one after another. Their attack managed to take down several undead knights, but those left alive began to advance towards them. The Death Knight leading the front of the charge commanded the troops skillfully and led them towards the gates. His sword cut through their attacks skillfully. Celestino and his guards, who were at the front, readied themselves, and upon receiving the signal clashed with him. Clammo! 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 Metals clashed against each other. Celestine drew his sword and engaged the Death Knight in head-on battle. The horse beneath him collapsed from Celestine's relentless attacks, and the Death Knight flew into the air and crashed to the ground. The Death Knight rose from the ground and glared angrily at Celestine. Meanwhile, the guards with the support of the mages engaged the knights. From among the piles of scattered bones, an undead emerged with a broken sword, and taking the opportunity pierced the back of one of the guards. The guard winced in pain and slammed his elbow into the undead skull, slicing it into pieces. At that moment, the undead knight drew his sword and stabbed the guard's chest. Dripping with blood, the guard collapsed, and many others followed as they were surrounded by the undead. The mage professors were already sweating profusely as they supported the others. The martial arts department professor was also in a helpless state. They struggled while ensuring the safety of the students. In this situation, some were even thinking of sneaking out and escaping the place, but sadly there was no escape route there. While the professor and the guards tried to keep the stronger ones at bay, the weaker ones managed to overwhelm them. Furthermore, with the appearance of the Death Knight, who was a legendary rank, more and more epic ranks began to flood into the area led by legendary rank undead. The weaker ones were being taken care of by the students. 70% of the students managed to return to the village, but many of them ran away directly and hid in straw huts or buildings out of fear. Many were unable to overcome the physiological burden and fainted on the spot as many students were dead tired from hunting all day, while others gritted their teeth and clenched everything to fight for survival. Alex's spells made holes in the undead skulls, but until the top was completely destroyed, they kept charging. When the battle started, many students who were approaching the place changed their minds. They thought that the village was attracting the undead and that gathering there might be a bad idea, so they went back into the forest to hide somewhere. Whether this idea was good or bad, only the future will tell. Alex noticed a rock crumbling on one of the sides. He stomped his foot and moved forward. Alex covered his sword with mana and performed a slash. A long, wide blade of flame descended upon the group of undead, burning them completely after cutting them into pieces. A long line of fire formed, making the undead afraid to cross it. Alex looked at the group whose faces were haggard from exhaustion. He noticed that there were Joey and Dave in the group. "Thank you, I thought I was going to die," they thanked Alex as they looked at him with respect and reverence. He cast a healing spell on them under his amazing gaze. "The goddess has blessed me to be able to use a small healing spell." "Don't think too much," Alex said humbly and looked at Joey. "Have you seen Hurt?" Joey shook his head. "I've been here since the beginning and I haven't seen him come in." "Maybe he's still in the woods," Joey replied. Alex frowned a little. There's no way Hurt would get stuck in the woods. His dexterity was more than enough to get through the tides of undead. Was it with any equipment? No, he's alone, Dave said this time. Alex whipped his head around as an undead monster leapt through the wall of fire and lunged at Alex. Alex didn't flinch and stabbed his sword forward. The monster opened its jaws to take a bite, but the sword passed through the top of the jaws, making a hole. Alex kicked it in the chest bone, and its entire body flew out after separating from the neck and crashing into the other undead. The jaws were still clattering, locking their jaws. Alex pulled out his sword and stomped on it, crushing it into pieces. Chapter 274, Outbreak of the Undead 3. The guards on the front lines began to suffer injuries due to the large influx of undead, making them uneasy, but they continued to fight. Celestine and the Death Knight clashed with each other, sending out powerful explosions one after another. The others seemed to be affected by their fights. With the fall of each undead, small dark smokes emerged and mixed with the air, forming a small miasma. The miasma perfectly mixed with the air and was inhaled by everyone, slowing down their recovery. The others realized that they couldn't continue like this and had to find the necromancer who was in charge of this undead. Celestine's sword flashed, and with a quick movement, she cut off the Death Knight's arms. The Death Knight used the other arm to throw a fist, but Celestine dodged it and kicked it, sending it flying. Celestine dashed forward and pierced the Death Knight, splitting it in two. Celestine wiped away his sweat after dealing with the Death Knight and was about to return to the gates when he saw black smoke gathering in one place. His brows furrowed after seeing the phenomenon. A black flame and a figure emerged from the ashes. The manifestations caught everyone's attention, and when the figure emerged, everyone shouted in unison. Lick! Clack! 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 The lick muttered something and a deathly aura emerged from him. The undead that had been killed and their bones that had piled up began to come together and started to crawl upwards. Ow! The students screamed in horror. The undead began to rise and attack again. And under the effect of the Lich's wild area spell, they seemed to be getting a boost. The students were horrified to witness the scene. With great difficulty, they defeated the group of undead, but now most of them were rescued by the Lich. Neon and Celestine joined in and attacked the Lich, but the Lich summoned many undead that kept them at bay. Alex noticed that the situation was getting worse. In order to completely get rid of the undead, it is necessary to completely destroy them with light magic. Raya, don't hold back anymore. The situation is getting dangerous, Alex shouted. Take care of the students here and I will support the front, Alex ordered. The professor's side seemed to be in trouble and they needed treatment urgently. Raya heard Alex's voice and withdrew the current dagger and took another pair of glowing daggers. Raya's eyes flashed as she pulled out her dagger. Cut. The undead in front of her were cut apart like paper. Swish. 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 Raya's image flickered and the undead fell one after another. A trail of flashes remained there as she passed by the undead, after which they fell to the ground like a doll. Alex left everything in Raya's hands and ran towards the guards and teachers. Dot. Bang. 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 As Celestine was stopped by the group of undead, Neon fired spells one after another. Lich raised the staff and a barrier was formed that received the shots one after another. Lich, his fiery eyes shining, slammed the staff into the ground. The crystal embedded in the staff shone brightly and a dense darkness spread across the ground in a 500-meter radius. Celestine and Neon noticed the dark mass on the ground from which many pairs of hands emerged. Their expressions hardened as they looked around. The darkness spread out from the ground and covered the sky, trapping them within a sphere formed of darkness and isolating them from the outside world. Their vision was completely cut off and they found themselves in a completely dark space without a single ray of light. It seems like we're trapped in some kind of domain, Neon assessed. If this is a domain created by that Lich, that means we are in trouble. I can feel my power weakening and this place gives me the creeps. I just want to get out of here no matter what, Celestine said and raised her sword, slashing upwards. Swish. A crescent arc rose up and cut through the darkness covering them, but was soon closed by the darkness again. At that moment, they felt a tingling sensation and soon found hands touching them. Neon raised his hand and formed a sphere of flames and threw it upwards. The rays from the sphere burned the hands of darkness and shook them beneath him while illuminating the entire place. But Celestine couldn't shake it off and started to get affected. At that moment, the Lich formed an arrow of darkness and shot towards Celestine. Celestine, who was trying to cut off the hands of darkness that were approaching him, swung his sword rapidly. Because the entire place was covered in darkness except for the faint light coming from the sphere, he couldn't feel the attack and the arrow hit his chest. Celestine had difficulty breathing and his body seemed to freeze for a moment. He tried to move but found that he had been affected by the curse and had lost his vision. He began to panic. His senses dulled and anxiety overwhelmed him. He began to swing his sword like a madman. An undead was about to directly slash his face but Neon intercepted it by forming a barrier before Celestine blocked the attack and used a rock spell to smash the skeleton's head into pieces. Celestine, don't lose focus and calm down. Let's retreat for now, a voice from Neon rang in his ears and he nodded. The undead had no mana, making it difficult for Celestine to sense them, so she had to rely on her ears to deal with them. Everyone was fighting with all their might to try and survive. The guards, teachers, and students were already giving it their all, but the students were inexperienced in fighting on such a scale, causing the line to collapse. The guards and teachers did their best to protect the students fighting alongside them, but the students suffered serious injuries and succumbed to death after being attacked in a group by the undead. The number of guards was reduced from 150 to 118. The hardest thing was that there were only 3 clerics or healers in their group, and there were too many for them to assist, and they didn't have enough time to heal everyone. The guards and the professor were being pushed back by the increasing number of undead as the guards focused their attention on the knights who posed a greater threat to the students who could only deal with the disciple rank and at most the master rank, while every knight was at the epic rank or higher. Seeing that this way they would only suffer more casualties, The guards and the professor decided to retreat to a safe distance and engage in guerrilla warfare using the entire house and natural defenses to confront them. The undead that were pushing back the guards suddenly found themselves under the bombardment of light arrows. Bam! 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 The undead began to burn and emit a shrill wail. "Light spear!" Alex shouted. Hundreds of light spears manifested around him and shot towards the undead horde. Use light affinity spells if you have them, if not, use fire spells to burn them to ashes, Alex shouted. Chapter 275, Outbreak of the Undead 4. The spears fell to the ground forming a line of defense. Many low-level undead were afraid to approach and were instantly attacked when they came close. The spears persisted for some time before disappearing. The undead that were epic rank and above were slightly affected but still prepared to try and break through. For them, Alex summoned the swords of light and passed them to the guards and asked them to use swords against the undead. Seeing their skeptical look, Alex said, "I will soon be a holy son. The sword of light contains holy blessings of light bestowed upon me by the goddess Rebecca. It will persist for 3 minutes, but if you pour your mana into the sword, it can last much longer." Alex's words brought them some relief, and as they swung the sword of light, the undead grew restless as the light could erode a part of them. As the guards poured mana into the sword, it glowed brighter. They remembered Alex's words, and those who knew how to add fire to the attack, cut through the undead with a fire attack. The group of undead was instantly cut through like pieces of butter. The undead carried the energy of darkness, and the higher level ones used weapons imbued with the energy of darkness that could corrode the weapons and damage them, and the wounds sustained from those weapons were difficult to heal naturally. The swords carried a holy light that neutralized the aura of darkness and rendered them useless. The professor cast fire attacks on the undead and slowly began to shake it off a bit. They knew that the current situation was temporary, and unless they got rid of the lich, the tide would not turn in their favor. So, retreat was the only option for them. Several minutes passed as the guards retreated first. Alex repeated the barrage of light attacks, giving them some leeway. Some were frantically swinging their swords left and right to protect themselves as they retreated. Alex was trying his best to help and support them in their retreat. They needed to take care of Lich, who was summoning undead like he was a boss monster. After Wittitz was dead, only the weaker ones would be left. Neon and Celestine were trying to find a way to escape. Celestine's blindness was comparable to rendering him paralyzed, and he had to rely on Neon's voice to keep going, but this wasn't as easy as it sounds. Neon was defending both of them from the assault of the Lich and his henchmen, and was mainly focusing on defense, while Celestine swung her sword after pointing out the direction of the sound. Neon projected a large sphere of golden light around them that protected the both of them as the undead surrounded them from all sides and attacked them without leaving any area to retreat. Exhaustion was evident on Neon's face as the barrier consumed a large amount of mana. At that moment, the darkness surrounding them was pierced and a bright light shone. A hole appeared above them. Swish! A beam of light shot out from unknown directions and passed through the barrier created by Neon and fell upon both of them. A warm and pleasant sensation enveloped their bodies, shaking off the exhaustion. Dark fumes emanated from their bodies, and Celestine's blinding curse was dispelled by the light. The Lich's wide area spell also had a weakening effect on them, which was completely dispersed by the light. "My vision has recovered and I also feel more energetic than before," Celestine said as she looked at the beam of light. The undead surrounding them disappeared and turned into pieces of dust, and a 20-meter radius around them was devoid of any undead. Thud! With a loud noise, a child descended before them and spoke calmly, "You are lucky to have me, otherwise, you too will die today." Neon heard the familiar voice and looked at him with a surprised expression, and a certain memory clicked in her mind. "How could I forget that you are the Holy Son?" Neon laughed bitterly. In the current grim situation, Alex's power can change the entire situation. His presence was a blessing in disguise for them. "Holy Son," Celestine muttered with a curious look. She knew nothing about the recent matters that occurred in the capital and did not ask further due to the current situation. "If I can help you, could you take care of the Lich?" Alex asked. "If you can nullify the curse, I think we can defeat him," Celestine replied. "You need to do it quickly. Healing and nullifying the curse of 2 legendary ranks is too much for me, so try to finish this as soon as possible," Alex said. "Also, even though I've been healed, don't forget that you're not at your peak yet," Alex reminded them. Celestine nodded and stepped forward as Alex and Neon followed behind him, providing support. Alex summoned swords of light and many swords appeared beside him. "Charge!" Alex shouted as he ran with Neon. Alex pulled out his sword and slashed with his sword imbued with light magic, instantly decapitating 3 master rankers. An epic ranker leapt towards him, but the swords of light stabbed into his arms and legs, pinning him to the ground, while another sword pierced through his skull, erasing the entire skeleton from existence. When he looked in the other direction, he found 2 rows of legendary Death Knights walking towards them. Celestine leapt over one while Neon and Alex took care of the remaining ones. Neon stepped forward, Ice Fury. A beam of white light was shot out, flying towards the legendary Death Knight who was running towards them. The Death Knight swung his sword. The attack was deflected by his strike, but a portion of the attack froze parts of his body, dealing significant damage to him. Alex raised his sword and stabbed in his direction. Boom! The ground erupted as the attack hit the Death Knight, pushing him back a few steps. The frozen bones he had were broken by the attack, and the attack had damaged some part of his body. The Death Knight roared in anger and stared at Alex to kill him, and slashed his sword at Alex. Neon fired a projectile at the Death Knight's attack. A loud boom echoed in the air, and from the dust emerged the Death Knight and swung his sword as he approached Neon. Neon panicked a bit after seeing the Death Knight approaching him and quickly cast a barrier. The Death Sword collided with a barrier, which cracked as the tip of the sword pierced through it. "Damn it!" Alex muttered and tried to defend Neon. The barrier was weakened by the dark aura of the Death Knight's sword. Alex tried to parry the attack, but the Death Knight's strength was too much for him to bear. With a scream of pain, both Alex and Neon were sent flying by his attack. Alex's body landed dozens of meters away and rolled on the ground for a few meters before coming to a stop. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.